You're watching the Battered Fans Network.
Welcome everybody to not episode. Welcome everybody to night number 3 of the MLS preview marathon. I guess is what I'm calling it. This is the final night. We got 8 teams, the top of the table. We're going over Columbus, Cincinnati, Seattle, Houston, LAFC, Galaxy, Inter Miami. I hope I said all 8. But it's been a fun 3 nights. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. The goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts. We're about 60 away at this point. So we appreciate everybody that's been hanging out with us the last couple of nights. And without further ado, let's just get started. We're going to start with the team that I feel has had one of the worst off seasons, and that is the Columbus Crew. And we got my guy Ty from the Wise Men podcast. What's going on, Mr. Ty Fisher? How are you doing, sir?
Man, it's been too long. I feel like I forget your name sometimes, man. Just it's been way too long, but I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I am the Cucho lover, if you forgot. I used to a big Cucho fan. Obviously, Pereira was my team in Colombia, so that's where he came from. And I mean, before we get into the Cucho, because that's obviously going to be a big talking point, 2024 recap. You guys, Leagues Cup champs, but that was about it. And then you crashed out in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Just a quick recap of the 2024 season.
I mean, it wasn't a total failure. We got a trophy out of it. Knocked you guys out, so that was fun. But I mean, overall, I mean, it wasn't what we hoped for, but we still got a trophy at the end of it. We're still got back into CONCACAF Champions Cup, so that's a plus. So it's not all bad, but we really wanted to defend the MLS Cup title. But shout out to the Red Bulls. They are one hell of a team, and they showed us how they can actually compete. So I think now, just looking back, it's like, all right, what can we do better heading into this season?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Now, you still have what's most considered the best coach in the league.
Yeah.
But he'll definitely have to show it, because when we go into the biggest departures, obviously, runner-up for MVP Cucho Hernandez no longer there.
Yep.
Now, you've been saying it since last year that you thought that he might be gone. And, I mean, I felt like it, at least from our perspective, it happened out of nowhere. I don't know if in Columbus it was the same feeling, because I felt like it didn't seem like there was a lot of traction in him leaving, and then one moment to the next, he's gone.
Yeah, so with that whole thing, it was, Monterrey, Botafogo, teams in South America and Mexico that wanted him. But I think when Issa Tall went to England to talk to Cujo about coming to Columbus, he promised him a couple things. One, come to Columbus, be the face of the club. 2, gain his confidence back, gain significant minutes, become the star of the club, whatever, win championships, get a move back to Europe or whatever to get back to the Colombian national team and book a spot in the World Cup. All of those things have been checked off the box so far. Betis was a definite surprise because it was not one that we had heard before. But it was also one that kind of made sense to fulfill the promise that Isotal made to Cucho Hernandez of, getting back to playing in Europe and hoping to get back on the Colombian national team for the World Cup next year. I
mean, I love Cucho. I don't. If he gets called up, he still probably wouldn't get much minutes, especially now that John Duran is blowing up. But if he's gonna have a chance, he definitely, unfortunately, he'd have to leave MLS. So I thought that was going to be the biggest loss, and it was the biggest loss. But I figured, okay, they just got to figure out the whole backup striker. And then a couple of days later, all of a sudden, Christian Ramirez is out the door also. That one I didn't see coming. I don't know if that's something that you guys saw coming.
No, it wasn't actually. I think that was probably the biggest surprise because that happened a couple of days later, right? So while everybody's still trying to wrap their head around Cucho leaving and whatnot, then you get Christian Ramirez going back home to Southern California. I said this multiple times on Stateside Footy and last night during our show. It's kind of a full circle moment, right? He from Garden Grove, California, Southern California native. He's been around the league, Minnesota, Houston, LAFC, went to Aberdeen in Scotland, came back to MLS with Columbus, and now he's back home in California. When we played LAFC and beat them 5-1 in last season, he scored the first goal and he celebrated with all his family that was there in the stadium. So it's kind of a homecoming, kind of one of those things where it's like me personally, I think he's getting to that latter stage of his career. I hope not, but why not? If it is that time where he is going to hang up the boots, why not do it back at home where he can be around friends, family all the time instead of having to fly them out to Columbus or wherever he's going to end up. But Christian, that's a big loss because he also was a game changer off the bench for us. Changed the game against Cincinnati in the Eastern Conference Final 2023. Helped us close out the game against LAFC in the MLS Cup. Just one of those guys that could change the game in an instant when Columbus needed it the most.
I mean, and him, Rossi, and Cucho, the interchangeable up top on those three. I felt like it was the most lethal, second most lethal offense attack in the league.
Yeah,
it's gonna be big shoes to fill. So they're gone. Big arrivals. Now, I hadn't heard about any arrivals, and maybe you can fill me in now because I thought, okay, not a lot of people coming in, but that's because not a lot of people left. All of a sudden, Cucho and Ramirez leave.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody to fill those spots?
I mean, not coming in as far as a transfer, but a lot of people are thinking that Wilfred Nancy could move Max Arfson up to a spot, an attacking spot. Jensen Russell Rose going to get more,
but he's getting interest from other places also.
Yeah, and I can pretty much say that I think that's true also. So, but if he isn't going anywhere, people want to see Max Arfson more in an attacking spot because he's very well. Jason Russell Rose is going to get more significant minutes off the bench, or not even off the bench, more significant starting minutes actually. Yeah. He's been building up his confidence throughout the last 2 years under Wilfried Nancy. But a lot of people were, asking me about Miguel Borja, Colombian native also coming in. I'm like, there's nothing really there. I've talked to some people. They haven't heard anything. So that was just a made up rumor, or if anything, just an interest.
To Miami or also.
Yeah. So it was either they hadn't had contact, or it was just one of those interest stage type things where there was no contact made, but they were just keeping an eye. So no big arrivals. I think the only arrival that we had was the re-signing of Evan Bush, fourth string goalkeeper. So nothing really on the arrival side. But Wilfried Nancy did say that the club was going to make a move for at least one or two players before the season starts. That is about a week and 2 days away now.
I'm about to say it's like 9 days away.
Yeah, time's ticking. So if we don't see anything now, I think we'll see what happens come first kick.
So if you don't bring anybody in and Max Arfson leaves,
yeah.
Well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Formation. Let's go step by step. Formation. Wilfried Nancy, for those that don't know, what's the typical formation that he plays, and what kind of possession, counter, what kind of game does he like to play?
Yeah, so formation wise, 3-4-2-1, 2 10s, 2 wingbacks, 3 center backs. Also, wingbacks are more so attacking and defense, so they're up and down the pitch about 90 minutes, as always. Very possession based, plays out of the back quite often. But also is one of those teams was one of those coaches that make the team draw defenders to exploit, soft spots in the midfield. It's one of those things that Cucho did best, actually, when he would drop in front of the center backs, collect the ball, and just swing it out wide to Mo Farsi, who's running down the right wing, and now Columbus is on the counterattack. We dominate possession, I think, the last 2 years. Whether it's first or second, whatever. I think we've been in the top 3 both years. So we're very heavy on possession, but we also like to get the opposition to foul a lot. We have the most fouled player in the league in Darlington Nagbe. So, but it's one of those things where it's very tough for teams to beat. But now that we've had Nancy for 2 years, we've won multiple trophies. Teams have our numbers. So now what can we change? Tactic wise to still play Nancy ball, but still get the best of our opposition.
So with the big names, I mean, you still have Diego Rossi, but with the big names gone, if somebody was watching a Columbus game and they're like, you know what, Ty told me to look out for this player because he's not a household name, what player would you say look out for this guy?
Well, I would say Max Arfston.
Okay.
But given
That's
the
1A. Let's go 1B.
Yeah, 1B. 1B would probably have to be Sean Zawatsky, honestly.
Okay. He's linking up next to Nagby, right?
Yeah, so he's more timid than say Aiden Morris was, right? Because Aiden Morris was one of those guys who would do all the dirty work. He's not scared to go into a tackle. He's not scared to do all the shenanigans and foul and get carded and whatnot. But Sean Zawatsky is one of those silent but deadly players because he's probably the Swiss Army knife of the team. He's played every position so far. He doesn't like goalie, but he's one of those guys that you can plug in anywhere and fill a gap, maybe mid-second half, and he can still, do wonders with the ball at his feet, passing, creating scoring chances, and everything like that.
What was a bigger loss, Aiden Morris or Christian Ramirez?
That's you can't compare those two. It's Aiden Morris by a landslide. The only reason why I say that is because Aiden Morris was one of those significant starters. Came up in the Crew Academy, got his start in MLS Cup when he filled in for Darlington Nagby, who had COVID at the time. Went through ACL injury, came back. He's better than ever. But again, Aiden Morris is that guy he's a young, scrappy guy that is a controller. He demands, respect in the midfield, right? Yeah, he's paired up to Darlington Nagby, but he's one of those guys that demands respect from the opposition. He is not afraid, again, to go into tackles, not afraid to foul, not afraid to, talk smack. He's one of those guys that is very elegant on the ball with his feet and directs players where to go. So he's basically
keeping up with him in the championship.
Yeah, he's been starting ever since he got back from his injury.
Okay.
Yeah,
so he's been starting. Okay, awesome.
Oh yeah.
I love to hear that because sometimes, like Diego Gomez went from Miami and he hasn't been consistently on the pitch. So you love to hear. I mean, it's the championship technically, second division, but it's still a big deal that he's getting to start every game.
He's been a consistent starter, and then when he got injured, he was on the bench. Right? But then, he's been consistent, so it's great for him.
All right, so Aiden Morris gone, Cucho gone, Christian Ramirez gone. The strength on this team, I would assume, is still with Wilfred Nancy, right? Because he is the best coach in the league. So that's what I would assume. Everybody's counting on him figuring things out. But if you could say this is going to be the weakness, as of right now, what is the weakness on this Columbus team going into 2025?
Well, it has to be our back three, right?
Okay.
You look at Rudy Camacho ironically enough, after the 3-2 loss against Miami, he was not the same Rudy Camacho that we saw at the beginning of 2024 and throughout the second half of 2023, where he was probably one of the best defenders in the league. The back three is very suspect at times, right? They get too far up. You have Steven Moreira, who's a right center back that goes from the center back line to joining the attack, right? Yevon Cheberko, still not relatively new to the league, but still trying to find that balance on when to get up in the attack and when to drop back. The only time that happens is when Columbus is losing, right? So now we have to drop back our three defenders. The wing backs have to play more defense, but when we're on the attack, the only defender back is Rudy Camacho, and it's Patrick Schulte, who it plays a high line, right? So, given the additions that Cincinnati have added, Atlanta have added, Miami still has all four of their guys. It's going to be very quick to get back when you have Messi, Suarez, and another striker, another forward. I don't know who all fours are on your team, but
you got a lot of people now.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get back. And Miguel Almiron, he's very good too. So this defense we need more depth, basically, at the back line is what we need, because right now we have 3 or 4 players.
Okay. Now when we look at this season coming up, we said Cucho gone, Ramirez gone, Morris gone, and possibly Arson possibly gone.
Yeah.
What's the expectation from the fans now that all these players have left and that Max Arfson is possibly out the door? Like, are you guys still? Because I mean, going into last season, you guys were thinking trophies. What's the expectation from the fan side this year?
sign a DP9, pretty much, really quick.
Okay.
I mean, expectations for this year, they've kind of swayed a little bit, right? So fans obviously want wins. They obviously want trophies. But heading into this season, fans also want a DP9 to kind of recreate the shoes, the to fill the vacancy that Cucho Hernandez left, right? As far as goal contributions. Also want somebody who can fill the shoes that Christian Ramirez left. Possibly fill the shoes that Max Arfson's going to leave if he does end up going to, I think it's like Slava Prague or something like that.
Yeah, I forgot, but I saw the report today.
Yeah, so fill the shoes that Max Arfson's going to leave if he does. The biggest thing that we need is a striker, and I see that everywhere on Twitter. But the expectations are still the same. Win games, beat Cincinnati, win trophies, still be one of the best teams in the league, and go from there.
I'm expecting you guys to crash out a little bit. Not drastic.
That's fine. I mean,
no, obviously, but no. But I'm just telling you that after losing those 2 out of your 3 best playmakers, I feel like, especially if you lose Max Arfson, I mean, look, Wilfred Nancy. I mean, he's going to prove that he's the best manager if he can keep you guys in the top 4 again in the East. I just have a hard time believing they can do it.
He's also done a lot with less when he was in Montreal. So
that's true. Yes, when he was in Montreal, they were top of the East. All right. So out fandom aside, realistic 2025 prediction for this season. Well, where do you think the Columbus Crew end up? And then let's add Max Arfson to your team. Let's say he's still there because he hasn't gone anywhere yet.
So say Max Arfson is still with us come first kick. Where do I predict that we're going to finish?
Yeah.
I'd say probably somewhere it's changed a lot now since Cujo and Christian have left. I'd probably say between 4th and 6th.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Look, if I think if you guys end up top 4, Wilfred Nancy, like, he won't be in Columbus very much longer. Because I think that'd be one hell of a job. Now, obviously, you could still bring in new players, but I'm talking about just strictly off the roster that you have right now. I think that would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
but
it like I said, it's changed a lot, especially because I was thinking like no higher than 2nd, no lower than 4th. Then you get this happening. It's like, okay, now it's probably no higher than 4th, no lower than 6th. Still a playoff team.
That I agree. Also, I think they will be a playoff team, but definitely not the top. All right. Like I say at the end of every one of these previews, this is a quick 15-20 minute preview. But if you do want a deeper dive into the Columbus Crew, go ahead, follow Ty, and let them know where they can find you if they want a deeper dive into the Columbus Crew.
Yeah, you guys can follow Wiseman Say Podcast on Twitter at Wiseman Pod. Check us out every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And if you guys like writing and reading, you guys can follow my work on masterreport.com.
Awesome. Ty, as always, appreciate you. We can't go so long without talking. You got to jump on. And we'll be keeping on throughout the season.
Yeah, definitely, man. I look forward to talking to you guys again.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too, man. Be safe.
All right. And now we're staying in Ohio. We're moving. You know what? I'd be lying to you, Jason, if I told you if we're moving east or west, because I have no idea where Columbus is situated on the map. Jason, what's going on, man? How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, getting geared up for this MLS season that kicks off before you know it, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just like you, I am very excited. I am admittedly an Inter Miami fan, so we start on Tuesday. So I got a lot less than a lot of the other teams to wait for. I only got 4 or 5 days. So I'm excited also. But we're here to talk Cincy, and Cincy is a very interesting team with the moves that have recently happened. But before we get into that, 2024 recap. You guys started well. You guys, I felt like the peak was when you kicked Miami's ass. Was it like 6-1, 5-1?
Yeah, it was 6-1. I think it was.
Yeah. And then that was the peak, right? Everybody was talking crap online, and then all of a sudden things just went awry. Could you give me a quick recap of that 2024 season?
Daniel, you said it. I mean, I was actually having this conversation with somebody the other day. When did the wheels fall off with the FC Cincinnati season and with the whole Lucho Acosta thing? And a lot of us settled on that Miami win last year when the fans in Cincinnati were chanting, "You need Messi, we have Lucho." And Lucho was going up to the fans and saying, No, don't say that. Yeah, it was really a tale of two seasons last year. Started off really hot. Everybody in Cincinnati was talking about, are we going to be Shield contenders again this year? How are we going to go into the playoffs this year? And then the injuries piled up. You had Matt Miazga get hurt out in San Jose. You had Nick Hagglund with a season-ending injury. So two of our key center backs were out for the rest of the season. We had to go out and get Chidozie Awaziem and Teenage Hadibi to kind of end out the season. We did not have our top striker last year at all, Aaron Bupenza, for various reasons, and they eventually had to terminate his contract. So FC Cincinnati, I feel like last year was playing with one hand tied behind their back, and they were relying on Lucho Acosta to just carry the team. And the poor guy just was hurt by the end of the year. The mileage was wearing on him, and crashing out in the playoffs against NYCFC was really not what any of us expected. So we're happy that a new season is on the horizon. But last year was, I think, coming off of the 2023 year where we won the Shield and made it to the Eastern Conference Final, everyone had very high expectations, and those expectations, I think, were not met last year at all.
And when you said that you were out with your striker all year, and Corey Bard, how do you pronounce his name? Baird.
Yeah.
He ended up being a bust, no?
Yeah, in a sense. He came off a year at Houston in 2023 where I think he scored 8 goals. So I don't think anyone was expecting him to score a bunch. He was kind of considered the second striker. Aaron Bupenza was our number one DP striker from Gabon, I believe it was. And he came in 2023, played really well, helped us in the playoffs. 2024 looked like it was going to go well. He got hurt, and then he got in a fight at a bar with a professional boxer that broke his jaw. So that kind of knocked him out quite literally for the season. And we were relying on Corey Baird and Yuya Kubo and guys who were kind of expected not to be everyday starters to come in and fill that gap. And while we still finished third in the Eastern Conference, it wasn't pretty there at the end. We went on a pretty long streak of winless games, and the fans were getting pretty restless.
Well, when we get to, I guess, the biggest departures, I feel like it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
Lucho Acosta, and we kind of figured it from the very end of the season, right? The exit press conference or interview or wherever it was that he said it, you kind of felt like it was coming. Were there any other departures outside of the obvious Lucho that you felt like this is going to hurt us?
Other than Lucho, we lost some guys who were big contributors kind of later in the year last year. Ian Murphy and Chido Awaziem both went, I believe, to Colorado as transfers. And those were two of our, like I said, later in the season, those were two of our key center backs. But I think the thought process was there's not a lot of cap space, so we got to get rid of somebody. We've got Matt Miazga, Nick Hagglund coming back, and Miles Robinson. So those were the two biggest departures, really, in the offseason, other than Lucho.
All right, so biggest arrival. So Cucho leaves, and everybody's like, okay, since he's going to crash out. And then all of a sudden, yesterday, lo and behold, here you got Evander coming in to fill in that Lucho role. Well, before we get into the Evander, because I obviously that's going to be a big topic, were there any other arrivals that you want to touch on before we talk about Evander?
Oh, yeah. I think for us, I mean, Evander's huge, but Kevin Dinke, our new striker.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. At the time, it was a record signing for like a day and a half until Atlanta decided they wanted to open their pocketbook.
Lots of laugh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 16 million, I think, in a transfer fee. Came over from Cercle Brugge in Belgium, where he was really highly touted. And this guy, he's young, he's super athletic. From everything we can tell, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He came very high.
Belgium league, right?
Yeah, the Belgian league. He helped get them into the Euro Conference League, I think is what they are playing in. And, there's a lot of high expectations for this guy coming in. And a lot of us are really hoping that he's going to be the answer, because we really haven't had a go-to striker since Brenner and Brandon Vasquez. So if we can get a striker that can score the goals for us and take some of that pressure off the midfield, that would be great. And I think everybody's kind of expecting Denke to be that guy.
Is Denke and Orellano going to be the top two?
I would think so. What little bit that they played in the preseason, it seemed like they had a good rapport with each other. We did bring in a new left back on loan. So that might be able to allow Luca Orellano to move up and play a little bit more of a natural wing. And that would really open things up in the midfield. We noticed last year when he played his best was when he was not being asked to play defense as much. So if we can get him in the midfield, get him going with Evander and Kevin Denke, I think that should be like your top three guys.
And I feel like that sounds a lot like Brenner, Vasquez, and Lucho all over again.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Brenner and Vasquez were more of dual strikers. I think this would be more of a situation where there's no replacing Lucho like for like, but this would be a situation where with Evander and Luca Orellano, you got two mobile guys, two guys that are good on the ball, two guys that can take free kicks really well, two guys that can pass really well, and then you got your big, strong striker up front to gobble up those rebounds off the goalkeeper or be there for those little short passes inside the 18.
Well, and I was going to ask, and I know this might be tough for you to answer at this moment, but Lucho or Evander? Because Lucho, I feel like is more of a playmaker, right? He can make his own shot. Evander creates a lot for others. Well, if you could pick one, which one would you prefer to have?
On our podcast, Cincinnati Soccer Talk, I've been making this argument that I think we could be better without Lucho. As much as I like the guy, Lucho, because you're right, he's a playmaker. And if you go on MLS YouTube channel, they've got a bunch of his highlights. A lot of last season, there was Lucho just passing up, not passing to guys, right? There'd be an open guy, and he'd go, no. I'm taking this shot, even if it means I have to dribble through 6 guys to take it. I think what we needed and what we need moving forward is more of a person who can distribute the ball a little better or is willing to distribute the ball a little bit better than Lucho. And so for me, Evander seems like he wants to be here, which is key. And he seems like that kind of guy, like you said, who can be making stuff happen for others rather than making stuff happen for themselves.
Absolutely. All right. So as far as the formation and tactics, everything's going to stay relatively the same. No, I would assume now that Evander is going ahead and being placed right where Lucho was.
Yeah, that's kind of the $1 million question, isn't it? I think we're not going to see too many shakeups in the formation. With maybe you might see, like I mentioned, Luca Orellano moving to a more forward type position, maybe as a true winger or as a midfielder. So you might see them play like a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2 or something like that. Might be the thought process. We do rely pretty heavily on Obina Nwobodo, who is one of the better defending mids in the league. And we also have Pavel Buka coming back, who is a solid just midfielder. He's been playing in the preseason in a more advanced role, but he is perfectly capable of being a secondary like defensive mid. So I wouldn't expect too much tweaks on the formation, but it is going to be interesting to see what they roll out with day one. If we get our new, I think it was Luca Engel is our new left back, if he is also in there with Luca Orellano.
If you were to tell me that there's a player to watch, people aren't familiar with Cincinnati, and obviously they know maybe Evander, but that's not a household name. Who would you say, look out for him?
I've talked a lot about Luca Orellano. He kind of was the big breakout star last season.
Last year, yeah.
But if we're talking maybe outside of Luca Orellano and Kevin Denke, I say watch Pavel Buka. If you're someone who likes a solid center mid who can come up and score if need to, but also get back and kind of destroy a build up for the other team. He might be a guy that you want to watch. He's young. He's pretty talented. He's a quiet player. He just goes out with his lunch pail and does his job. But there's a lot of us here in Cincinnati that are really high on Pavel Buka.
Okay. All right. What would be the strength of this team going into this season?
I think that front three of Evander, Orishano, and Kevin Denke are just going to be one of the better front threes in all the Eastern Conference. We have another solid center back situation going on. Miles Robinson's coming back. Matt Miosk is coming back. Nick Haglund will be back. Teenage Hadibi is coming back. So the center backs should be pretty solid so long as everybody, fingers crossed, stays healthy this year. So I think those two ends of the pitch should be something really to watch for this coming season.
All right. And before I ask you about the weakness, Denke, do you have a number? Like if he has to give us this many goal contributions for this to be, because I mean, that was big money.
Yeah.
So for you to say like it was worth it, he lived up to the billing.
Yeah. I think for me, just if I'm speaking personally, if you're dropping that much money on a player on a transfer fee, you better be seeing 15 goals or more this season. And I think he's perfectly capable of doing it, but we haven't had a player since Brenner or Vasquez who has done that really. Acosta did to some extent, but
right.
I think I would hope 15 to 20 goals this season, bare minimum for Kevin Denke.
All right. So what would be the weakness on this team?
Depth is going to be a big one for FC Cincinnati, as it is with most MLS teams. The salary cap really hampers what you can do there.
Absolutely.
Once Kevin Denke is out as a striker, as much as I like the guy, you're going to be relying on guys like Corey Baird and Yuya Kubo, who can they score? That's the biggest question. Our backline depth is kind of questionable a little bit too. In terms of like
DeAndre Yedlin end up filling in one of those center back spots?
He has in the past,
as a backup,
as a backup, but he's more relied on to be the right back and to get up the pitch more often. And it's going to be interesting to see, where this young man named Dado Valenzuela fits in. Last year, he was backing up for Lucho, and he just kind of seemed a little out of sorts. The backup for our number 10 and the backup for like Pavel Buka in the midfield, that's a big drop off in talent right there when you have to pull them off, and you can't rely on those guys to play every minute of the season. Otherwise their legs are going to explode. So, that I think depth is going to be one of our bigger weaknesses this year.
So fan expectation now before, I think it was maybe Leagues Cup, you guys finally won a game without Lucho Acosta since he arrived. Like, it was a ridiculous stat that was going around that they hadn't won a game without Lucho Acosta. Now, he's no longer here, but I feel like you got a decent replacement with Evander. Yeah. What is the fan expectation now that Lucho's gone?
I think for those of us sickos who follow this team in and out every single day, I think a lot of us are expecting probably top 3 in the Eastern Conference. I know Tom Bogert picked us to win the Shield recently, like today. He came out with that.
Let me tell you.
It is a curse. I think top 3 in the Eastern Conference is a realistic expectation, but if things go according to plan, I could see FC Cincinnati being the top team in the East, just depending on what happens with Miami and Columbus and teams like that.
I think Columbus is going to fall off. I know we just had Ty on, and he was saying I don't see how he sees 4 to 6, maybe 6, but
so long as they fall off 2 times this season when they play us.
All right. So fandom aside, predictions. Where do you see the 2025 Cincinnati, the FC Cincinnati ending up by the end of the season?
Like I said, I think top 3 Eastern Conference home playoff game. I would hope for me, I'm expecting top 2. I think we can get in and get one of those first round bye situations set up for us in the playoffs. Playoff wise, we have to make it out of the first round. I think that would be unacceptable again this year. For me personally, I think it's Eastern Conference Finals or bust. We're bringing back a good core of players. We didn't lose a lot outside of Lucho. And if we can get the team gelling, which is always kind of that intangible thing, then we should be able to really put it to a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I could see that. And Cincinnati, what competitions are they participating in this year? They are in
we're in the Champions Cup,
and
the Leagues Cup this year. Yeah.
And,
so we open. I can't remember the team's name. It's a Honduran team. We open Champions Cup a week from Wednesday, or actually this Saturday, maybe down in Honduras. And then our home opener is the 22nd in MLS.
Okay. And if you were to go the season and let's say you win one of those cups, Champions Cup, obviously. If you were to win Leagues Cup, would that end up being a successful season just because you end up with a trophy?
It would be our first trophy since, outside of the Supporter Shield, it'd be our first tournament trophy since moving into MLS. So yeah, I think everybody would be very happy with that. I know for me and a lot of the folks that I talk to, Leagues Cup is like a nice to have thing, but it's not the Shield or MLS Cup. That is the be all end all is MLS Cup. And we don't really like Columbus, but we are jealous of those stars above their badge. And we need to get one down here in Cincinnati. It's been since 1990 since a team from Cincinnati has won their championship. So we need to get something done here for sports fans in Cincinnati.
Who was it in 90? Was it the Reds?
It was the Reds, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you disappointed that you guys aren't in the Open Cup?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I understand why we're not because we're in those other two cup competitions. FC Cincinnati fans, if you know our history and you know our history with the Open Cup, back when we were in USL, we made that run to the semifinals and beat Columbus and beat Chicago and barely lost to the Red Bulls. That's kind of part of our lore. And so a lot of us have a soft spot for the Open Cup. And yeah, and it's also really the only way that we ever get to play like those teams from USL that we kind of came up with is in the Open Cup. And now it's been 2-3 years now, and we haven't been able to play teams like Indy and Louisville and Pittsburgh. And you do kind of miss that. So maybe, I don't want us to crash out of any tournament, but it would be nice to see FC Cincinnati in the Open Cup next year.
Well, I thought it was ridiculous that this year the two finalists, the winner and the runner-up, both aren't in the Open Cup.
Yeah, that is kind of strange.
Yeah, I thought that was absolutely ridiculous because LAFC isn't defending it, and Sporting KC isn't in it either, and I feel like they should be.
Yeah, they definitely should be.
Well, I appreciate you, Jason, taking the time, and I say it at the end of every preview. Just a quick 15-20 minute quick preview of the season, but if you want a more in-depth follow of the FC Cincinnati, make sure you follow Jason and all his people. Jason, let everybody know where they can follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Blue Sky. I got my little tag under my name. If you want to hear my very uninformed thoughts on FC Cincinnati, go to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We have a podcast that we record every week on Monday nights. We've got a jersey swap podcast that is a kind of, we talk back with the people from the team we're playing that week. And then we also have Talking Tactics, which is hosted by a soccer coach. Coach Goff, who goes over that week's tactics, which is really informative for a guy like me who played, but still, kind of doesn't grasp a lot of the higher level stuff. So that's Cincinnati Soccer Talk. You can find them on all the socials and on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts.
Jason, you were absolutely awesome. You're much better than Justin Blair, so I appreciate you taking the time to join. Shout out Justin. And again, make sure that you follow them. The whole point of this was to get a quick preview of all the teams, but also to send everybody in the right place where they can really keep up with the team in depth on a weekly basis. So, Jason, appreciate you, and we'll be in touch throughout the season.
I appreciate it, Daniel. Thank you.
All right, have a great one.
Thanks.
All right, and now we are heading out west to the actual, here we go, MLS champion, LA Galaxy. I got my guy Edgar from Nags, News Across the Galaxy. How are you doing, sir?
Man, I've had a day. My garage door broke, and it's like raining like cats and dogs outside. So yeah, yeah.
Hey, we previewed Columbus about an hour ago, maybe, and Ty told me that it's snowing over there. So we're doing better than Columbus is right now.
Yeah, I like snow, but I'm
I,
different.
you know what? It's nice snow, but when you live in it, it gets old quick.
That is true. Nice to see you again, Danny.
Likewise, likewise. So
You like my new hat?
2024. No, I don't. I hate it. I wish I would wear my Yankee hat. Actually, I forgot that. I saw you on Tuesday calling me up for it. 2024 recap. You're probably gonna have the best recap of anybody that's been on the show. So give me a quick 2024 recap of the LA Galaxy, where you guys went from worst to first.
Yeah, it was really strange because just 12 months ago, you would have asked us, especially News Across the Galaxy, what our expectations were, and a lot of us were like, this is the beginning of a rebuild. It'd be great to finish, somewhere like five, six, maybe four at the most, and then get maybe through the first, second round of the playoffs, and we'd be happy with that because rebuilds, you never know. It's something. It's like a crapshoot. Sometimes it takes you longer than you would want, and in this case, trying to exercise, right? 10 years of being under Chris Klein, and then trying to turn things around. You didn't know how long it was going to take, but my God, what a turnaround! And
Absolutely.
one of the it's funny, one of the things that we were always poking at here, News Across the Galaxy, was how the rest of the league viewed Ricky Pooch, especially when he first came on, and you would see. I think I told you this. You'd see the highlight packages, and you're like, "Wow, this guy's fantastic." But when you have to see him every day, and you get to see all the stuff that he does wrong and doesn't make it to the to the highlight reel, then it gets frustrating because he was trying to force things and trying to do this and trying to do that, but over this past year, especially this last season, he went through an evolution, and you could actually see him evolve from the moment he started the season to the middle of the season where he got injured. And then after he came back, he went through like a phase where he was kind of adjusting to the way Vanny wanted him to play. And when he finally bought into that system, everything took off. And all of a sudden, Peck and Painter were scoring buckets of goals. All of a sudden, Dejan Joveljic started becoming much more relevant, much more important. And it didn't matter if LA Galaxy was still having issues on defense, on set pieces especially, because they were scoring so many goals that teams, were kind of sitting back trying to stem that attack.
Right.
And for us to have gone through this, very humbling, 10-year period, to all of a sudden you see these guys. There was a big argument among fans where it was, "Are we back?" And it was like some people were saying, "No, we're not back until we're lifting a cup," and then some of the younger heads were like, "Yeah, no, we are back. We are back. Look at us. We're winning games. We're beating teams that we had difficulties with in seasons past." And then at the very end, obviously, they went on that amazing cup run. I'm not gonna sit here and say that it was all everything turned out because it was just the way that they wanted it to. Because there was a lot of stuff that happened. There were so many upsets, right? Miami went down, Columbus went down, Cincinnati went down, LAFC went down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden we look at the playoffs and we're like, wow, this is set up pretty nicely for the LA Galaxy. And they just went through there. They ripped through Colorado, Minnesota. They had a hell of a game against Seattle, which a lot of people out here said this is MLS Cup right here, Galaxy versus Seattle. And I remember you got mad at me when I told you that the West was stronger than the East. Remember that?
I still think.
Yeah. Okay. Then.
But
There you go.
whatever.
But it's a different season. But at the time, right, we said Seattle and LA, that was MLS Cup, because whoever won that game was gonna probably go on to win MLS Cup.
Right.
All respect to Red Bull New York, who did come in. They played a hell of a game, and in the end, Galaxy won. I felt bad for their supporters, but you know what? At the end, we were the ones that were shedding happy tears. Very grateful. I don't think you'll find a Galaxy fan that will be like, "Hey, you know what? We, This is, we're the best. We're better than you. It's more like, damn, we were so grateful that this happened. That it was like Christmas come early, pretty much.
And I think you guys have Brad Guzanta to thank for that last year's title. But that's just me. So biggest departures.
Hello. Sorry, man, I lost you for a second there. Can you repeat that again?
So biggest departures. I know I'll fix my mic right now. I know it sounds better.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to consider Ricky Puig because he's going to be out for the season. Joveljic just left also. What would you say is the biggest departure this year?
Wow. Since the LA Galaxy was in the first stages of a rebuild, you expect the team to go through some roster changes during that process. However, since they ended up winning the cup, they were pretty much ahead of the curve. Suddenly, the profile of every player on that championship roster had a bit more shine. And some of them contributed in ways that made them fan favorites or even club legends. So yeah, it hurt to see some of these guys go, but I could say Gaston Brugman, which a lot of people he was like a rock at center defensive mid. He was sent to Nashville in exchange for Sean Davis. Martin Cáceres, who a lot of people were like, this guy's older. What's the big deal? Well, he was kind of like a mentor to all the young center backs, and he was kind of like a glue that held a lot of the team together. He was a very affable person. MLS Cup MVP Mark Delgado, who was one of the people that stepped in when Ricky Puig went down right before the Cup. Homegrown center back Jalen Neal, who was sent to CF Montreal, which kind of surprised everyone because they thought Jalen Neal was going to be somebody who's going to grow up in the Galaxy system.
Yeah.
And of course, the last one, Dejan Joveljic, who we had an idea was going to be moving on at some point because he was entering the last year of his contract, and after what he did in the playoffs, especially towards the end of the season, you knew he was going to be owed DP money. He was still on that U22 initiative, which he had aged out over, and trying to offer him anything less than DP money, which some people would argue he's not DP level still, but whatever money they were going to offer him, it would put Galaxy over the cap, and
right.
Yeah.
Well, the departures was there, but you guys went ahead and
of course,
replenished.
I'm sorry. You did mention Ricky Puig.
Yeah.
Let me touch on that real quick before I forget.
Go for it.
He's not out for the entire season. Supposedly he'll be back sometime in July, so it means he'll be back sometime around League's Cup, middle of the season.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they don't want to rush him back. But when he does come back, the hope is that he can hit the ground running, literally, and fit in seamlessly with his teammates because LA Galaxy has been working really hard to build something so that when he comes back, this team will be competing for championships.
All right. Well, as far as biggest rivals, Christian Ramirez, what other big rival would you say is going to be an impact?
Well, some people said, why Edgar? Why are you getting so excited? I said Elijah Winder from Louisville City, who made a big impact in USL, and people are saying, well, there's a gulf of talent between USL and MLS, and I said, well, this kid's pretty good. He's young. He made a big impact there. He's hungry. Will Kuntz, the general manager of the Galaxy, saw something in him, and they're bringing him over for a reason. Give the guy a chance, And then another guy that's coming into the club is Lucas Sanabria. He's from Club Nacional of Uruguay. He's young. He's another midfielder. And he's one of the people that's going to be tasked with trying to fill that vacuum left by Ricky Puig. And, of course, you mentioned Christian Ramirez, who he's really happy to be back home. You look at his social media. This guy's really excited to be back in LA.
That's what I keep hearing.
He's a local kid. And a lot of people are excited because with the loss of Dejan Joveljic, you're wondering who's going to score those goals. Well, Christian Ramirez is going to come in and hopefully fit that role. But the one guy that we're already looking at and hoping that we can announce soon is a young 20-year-old from Brazil named Matheus Nascimento, who was teammates with Gabriel Peck on the Brazilian youth and Olympic squad and is right now with the LA Galaxy. And this kid, He's really good. He's a tall kid, very strong, plays with that Jogo Bonito center forward. And, I think he's a striker. Actually, I think he's a striker. And the thing that's exciting about him is that he was teammates with Peck. They know each other very well. And Botafogo, as soon as they got the idea that other teams would come sniffing for him, they signed him to a 5-year deal. And they said you can only get him on loan. So Galaxy is trying to work out a deal to get him on loan with the option of buying him later in the season. So
I know, but Botafogo's paying big money for Santi Morales for NYCFC, so I could see them trying possibly offloading somebody. I hadn't heard that though. Yeah. I mean that because I feel like that's necessary because I was going to ask you who's going to fill in that Jovic role if because I don't see any. Christian Ramirez is going to fit that 9 role.
I mean the way that the midfield, the way the Vanny system is set up, they could feed him, passes and try to find him on open seams, but. Something that just came up this week, I don't think you might have heard about it, is, or maybe you did, is Joseph Paintsil is out. He got injured
right, for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, which is amazing because when you consider that this guy played for both club and country for 21 straight months, because he was playing for Brugge, right? And I'm sorry, for Genk. And then he played for AFCON for Ghana, and he was going back and forth. Then he transferred to MLS, and he just kept playing. And this guy at the end, remember when season ended, they were like, put this guy in a box somewhere, stuff him, in bubble wrap. Just don't let him touch anything until the season begins. And as soon as the season, preseason begins, he gets hurt. So you're like, damn it, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So it's gonna impact some of the competition for Galaxy at the beginning of the season.
It's going to be it might be a slow start. The formation, you said that they play through the midfield. What formation does the Galaxy run out with, and what kind of possession-based playing the counter? What kind of what does the team look like when it's on the pitch?
Well, Vanny usually employs an attacking 4-3-3 that has Paintsil and Peck on the wings with a forward striker in the middle. With Paintsil going down an injury, it really throws things into a bit of chaos because you're like, okay, who's gonna step into that role? Because we already figured out, okay, we got these guys that could be put in there as platoon at forward until we find someone that fits. But how do you replace Paintsil? People were talking about the Galaxy attack as a 3-pronged attack of the 3 Ps, Paintsil, Puig, and Peck. Well, now you're down 2 of them, and Jovic is gone, so you're down to Gabriel Peck. Well, what are you gonna do? One of the things that when they do employ that 4-3-3, it's an attacking formation, very possession-minded, trying to move the ball through the middle. Obviously, with Ricky Puig there, when he's not there, they switch to the wings and try to use the speed up the flanks. And one of the things that worked for them is that as the season wore on, they were able to switch that into a more defensive-minded counter-attacking scheme against teams that were faster.
Okay. Is there a player that you would say, if you're not familiar with the Galaxy and you're watching them randomly on TV, look out for this guy. He's not a household name.
I would give you 2 guys.
Okay.
Like I said, Lucas Sanabria, who's just coming in from Club Nacional of Uruguay. He's new. We just saw him play his first game yesterday. And he did pretty good. Got his feet wet. So we're gonna see more of him over the weekend. And then, of course, like I said, Mateus Nascimento, who I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned, he's at Coachella right now. There's a photo of him in a Galaxy kit already. So something must have happened. Maybe he's just there because somebody gave him the kit and he's just there, on holiday. Who knows? But whatever it is, the kid's there. So maybe we might see him this weekend. And if he does end up with the Galaxy, you got to go and look up his YouTube videos. This guy is insane. And for somebody who's only 20 years old, wow. Everybody's excited about him.
I mean, a lot of Brazilians are just, the highlight reels are just ridiculous. What would be the strength of this team? Would it still be the attack?
I would say flexibility. I know that you want like a more, focus on one thing, but I would say the team's flexibility and the fact that they have a very deep roster, which is something that we really found out about last season. Because for the longest time, LA Galaxy would have like a big name player on the team. They'd have a few role players around him, and then you look at the bench, and it's like, who are you guys, right? But over the last 12 to 24 months, more or less, they've been putting together a team that has a lot more depth. These guys come in, they're hungry, they want to be role players. You ask them to do something, they'll do it. And it's something that really helped the team, especially during that cup run, because there were no egos on that team. Everybody was working hard for the same goal. And that's something that you really admire in championship team. So having that flexibility, that deep roster really helped them in the past. Now they're bringing in a bunch of new people, and it's trying to get them acclimated into that same mentality, and hoping that they can also step up when somebody goes down. Like I said, Pencil's down. Who's
Right.
going to step up, right?
As far as a weakness goes, would it be just health?
Maybe. I know there were some injuries last year, but it wasn't anything to the point where like it really hampered the team. Like I
But this
said, when
season,
Ricky
it seems
Puig
like it
went-
might.
well, that's the thing. That's where that flexibility, will come in handy, right?
It does.
Last season, I think their biggest weakness was giving up goals and set pieces, and it was a running theme especially at the start of the season. They had so many issues, and when Jalen Neal came back from injury about a third of the way through the season, because he had been out for a while, a lot of people were hoping that he would help solve that, and it turned out that Jalen Neal, as much as we love him, man, he got dunked on a few times, especially against LAFC. And so that kind of hurt his profile, and this is why you ended up seeing Carlos Garces, come in at the end of the season. He remedied much of that, and at the same time gave the Galaxy an attacking threat from the back. But one of the things that you would also see is the Galaxy would also give some soft goals on counters, and so these are things to watch. But I think their flexibility can try to stem that, but you can
Okay.
only bend so much.
And shout out to Garces, a Pereira native also, like Cucho Hernandez. I'm from Pereira, so whenever I see one of those guys in the MLS, I always root for them. All right, I'm going to skip over the fan expectations because when you are the defending champions, that's the expectation from a fan perspective, I would assume. So going 2025 prediction, realistic prediction, injuries taken into account, where do you see this team by the end of 2025?
Well, I'll still give you a little bit of the fan expectations because
Okay.
it's something that we're thinking about here. All the podcasts out here as well.
Right.
It's like the Galaxy is back in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, right? And before Pinto got hurt, everybody was expecting a deep run in the cup because some of the teams that are in that bracket, we believe like a Galaxy can beat these guys, in a short competition. But now Pinto's hurt, and you're like, okay, I don't know if they can make that deep run anymore. But when you turn your attention to the regular season, how's that going to affect them? And so that's where that depth and flexibility is going to be tested. As far as the prediction of how this team is going to do, I still believe that they're going to be there in the end in the playoffs. I expect maybe a top three position. I don't know about first anymore. MLS makes it so hard to
Absolutely.
remain competitive unless you're Inter Miami, but but they make it so hard, right, to stay at the top. It's just and
Yeah.
for LA Galaxy to be back there, I'll be honest, I'll be shocked. But if they can finish in the top three, I think a lot of people here will be content. And then if they could try it and go on another cup run, which damn, that would be amazing. You don't know. There's so much parity right now, and out here in the West, things are so strong. I mean, the West. We were talking about how the East was so strong. The West is really loaded up. San Jose went from being, the whipping boys to like now they're, Papa Smurf. So you gotta
Yeah,
watch
no,
out for those guys.
Absolutely. The West has gotten strong. Even Neutral Acosta is now in Dallas, so it's going to be interesting for
Brandon
sure.
Vasquez.
If you guys don't win the MLS Cup, but end up winning, let's say, Leagues Cup, do you think it will still be considered a success?
Yeah, I think people will be happy. I think
Just a trophy.
No, yeah, just winning something I think
Okay.
will make people happy because you still have that warm feeling from winning MLS Cup, and that's something
Yeah.
that doesn't go away that quick.
That's true. I wouldn't know, but I would assume. All right. I say this at the end of every preview. This is a quick 15, 20-minute preview, but we do this so we could put you and kind of point you to the direction of a more in-depth podcast. So if you are interested in the LA Galaxy, go ahead, Edgar, let them know where they could find you so they can get a more in-depth look into the Galaxy.
Thank you very much, Danny. Yeah, I'm Edgar from News Across the Galaxy. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky soon. And of course, we have a YouTube channel as well. We also have a website where I do annual kit reviews. As far as I'm concerned, you can find me as Edgar Nags. I also do a midweek show where I always preview matches and I have guests from around the league come in and give us an in-depth preview of their team before every match.
Awesome. Edgar, as always, appreciate you taking the time to join us. And good luck with that garage. We'll be in touch throughout the season.
Thanks, Danny. Take care, man.
All right, have a good one. All right, we are done with the champs. And now let's move over to my guys here, RSL. What's going on, Alan? How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Daniel. How are you? I'm doing pretty good over here, except pretty cold. We just got dumped on with a bunch of snow.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. It is about 85 degrees down here.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So, Alan, 2024 playoffs. At one point, it looked like you guys might have the MVP of the league. Could you give me a 2024 recap?
So this is how 2024 went down for us. We had all the hopes at the very beginning of this season. You could see us going all the way through June. We had all the hopes. In fact, as of July, Chicho had, if I'm not mistaken, 17 goals by July. And we thought, this is Golden Boot, this is MVP. July happens. We don't know exactly what happened, but the team fell off. And this is where we sold Andres Gomez, and this is where we just couldn't find our niche, fell down the table a little bit. But just like in good RSL fashion, we made it to the playoffs, and that's where we are for the past lot of years.
Yeah, no, you guys made it to the playoffs, but then you guys crashed out to, basically St. Clair, right? Because it was 2 penalty shootouts, if I'm correct.
Yep, 2 penalty shootouts. Somehow we can't get the right guys to get lined up for those PKs, but it seems to be the same way every year for RSL. Fans are already expecting us to make the playoffs. We're pretty much a upper mid-table team that tends to put out good enough quality to get it to the playoffs. But after that, that's where we start hoping that something is going to go right for us.
Right. Well, I guess I'll move on to the biggest departures. I think it's pretty obvious, right? Chicho Arango. Now, he got suspended. One of those games was randomly the All-Star game. I wasn't sure how that's possible, but he got suspended from the All-Star game. And I haven't heard exactly why it was. Felt like the season for him personally went downhill after that. Was there did you guys expect him to be gone before he was gone?
To be honest, I don't think any of us expected him to be gone, but it doesn't surprise us that he is gone. Obviously, things happen in the background. No one knows the actual details except for those that are involved. But the fact that he asked to be sent somewhere else, anywhere, is indicative of probably something that happened that was serious enough that he just needed to leave. So we could see that in July. From that moment on, he just could not recover his mojo. Other big departures that really affected us was Andres Gomez, like I just mentioned. Having him being sold out to France at a moment when we needed someone anchoring the offensive push really killed us because just between the two of them, Chicho and Andres Gomez, they had a goal assist combination of 43. So just our whole offensive firepower just went out the door with those two, Chicho falling off and then Andres Gomez being sold.
And now
but
Diego
it's
Luna
just
is
not
the lone man.
Yeah, and that leaves Diego Luna, but we also lost Anderson Julio in the offseason, where we lost Matt Crooks, which those two by themselves contributed another 19 goals and assists. So we lost 4 out of our top 5 offensive producers this offseason, which super puts a damper on anything offensive.
Now, you had those departures. Did you have any arrivals that you feel are going to be impact arrivals?
So the impact arrivals, I'll even start a little bit before the end of the season. So we had Dominik Marchuk that came in from Poland. He
The
came
winger?
in August, a winger. Yeah,
Yeah.
he came in to replace Gomez. There's a lot of potential in him. In fact, he showed a lot of bright spots towards the end of the season. Now, people that have come in, players that we've received just this offseason, we've had Forster Ajago. We had Elias Manuel. Those two are good strikers. I'm not going to say that they're the best. Both of them were bench strikers for their respective previous teams. We also have Rafael coming in from Brazil as a goalkeeper. Right now, we have Zach McMath, who's injured. We traded away Gavin Beavers, which is another big departure, a youth player. And so we have players that can fill in now. And I guess maybe I should mention also Ariath Pule from Australia, who's also a striker. In this preseason, we've played a lot of Forster, Ajago, and Pule. Both of those players can produce goals. It's just being able to, I guess, work together with the team that's already there. So I'm not worried in the sense of no one's going to produce goals, but there is going to be a significant lack of goals compared to last year.
I was going to say, because it has to be a drop off between Chicho and Forster.
Absolutely. There's no doubt.
Okay. As far as the formations go, what kind of formation is the RSL going to run out in, and what kind of games do you guys play? Do you guys keep possession? Do you play the counter? Play a low block? What kind of game can we expect RSL to play this year?
So Pablo Mastroeni is super faithful to the 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
We haven't deviated almost at all in his whole tenure. But this allows us to play more of we build out of the back, especially with our defensive midfielders. We build
With the double
with
pivot?
Ojeda. Yep, we play with a double pivot. So it's Ojeda and Emeka Anelli, which Anelli is our surprise coming out of nowhere player that emerged last year. And we saw him get some minutes with the U.S. national team in the January camp. But from those two, we can expect to build from there out to the wings and use the next line, which we are three. So in that line, we'll have most likely Diego Luna, Diogo Gonçalves, and Dominik Marchuk. That's where the magic is going to happen and has to happen this season, just because we don't have a star striker. If we can have those five work together in that midfield and to produce some kind of movement through the lines passing, I think we're going to find success, and I think we're going to catch a lot of teams off guard, especially with not having a star forward.
Absolutely, because I figured the Chicho's gone. I expect a regression in performance as far as the attack goes. You guys scored almost 70 goals last year, no? Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's pretty close to that. We've
65.
But again, that's attributed to Chicho, Gomez, Luna, Julio, and Matt Crooks. 4 of the 5 are now gone. So
Right.
Yeah, there's going to be a lack of offensive power. But I think with the forwards that we've gotten this offseason, I think we're not going to get them completely recovered in terms of offensively, but I think the opportunities will be presented.
All right. I mean, I think most people are not going to be aware or very familiar with a lot of people on this roster. So outside of Diego Luna, so if you could tell people, look out for this one player. This is a player that you want to keep an eye on if you turn on the TV and you catch an RSL game. What player would that be?
Well, I guess it depends on what you want to look for. So if you're looking for control, someone who's going to man the show, you're going to be looking for a Emeka Anelli or Ojeda, that somewhere in that double pivot. But if you're looking for maybe star power besides Diego Luna, you're going to look at Diogo Gonçalves, who came over from Copenhagen. He has Champions League experience. He has a bunch of European experience just because he comes from Portugal as well. But I think if you look for those 3 players, Diogo, Ojeda, and Anelli, those are the players you're going to watch besides Luna.
And I'm assuming, since you said that, the strength of this team is the midfield.
it is going to be the midfield this year. We have pretty good depth this year in the midfield. Not compared to last year. Last year it seemed a little bit light, but this year and actually this offseason, they worked a lot on getting depth, and it's good depth. We're not talking about over the top, but it's good enough to get the job done.
Okay. And if we were to point out a weakness where you feel like, okay, this team might be weak in this area, this facet of the game, like where would the weakness be?
Well, I'll state the obvious right off the bat: the forward. Right now, we don't have a reliable forward to give us double-digit goals probably this season. But I think the other place where we're going to be weak on is our center defense. For the past year or so, there's been some kind of weakness within that back line that it's given up games, and we gave up a lot of games last season. We've been up 3-1, 3-2, and next thing you know, the other team ties it up, and we're stuck with 1 point. So and even vice versa, we've even battled back. I remember there's a couple of games in May of last year where we battled back from being down because the defense within the first 20 minutes of the game allows a goal to be let in. So the defense is going to be crucial this season in terms of getting better. If we don't get better, it's going to be another year of defensive headaches. And then obviously that forward.
The fan expectations this year, like you said, you guys expect to be in the playoffs every year. So where would you say is the fan expectation? Like if we get to this point or we achieve this, the fan base is going to be happy.
Look, I think we're going to be happy if we can get, first off, past the first round of the playoffs. We haven't done that in quite a few years. I think where we can be happy is if we can go far in any tournament that we're in right now. I mean, currently next Wednesday we're going to be playing CONCACAF Champions Cup. We're up against a tough Herediano team, and if we can get past them, we're up against most likely an LA Galaxy team that right now is hurting, in my opinion, because of Jovic leaving, because of Ricky Puig injuries. I think
Pencil's out for 6 to 8 weeks also.
Right. So you have a couple of things going for us, supposedly. We just need to get the job done. So I think success in terms of the fan base would be to get farther in any tournament that we're in this season, farther than we've ever gone.
Okay. And fandom aside, where is your prediction for this season? Where do you think this team ends up by the end of 2025?
And see, this is where we discussed it last night in our episode. So I want to be as truthful as I can with this one because we all want to be the best that we can. So I think the best that RSL can do this season would be around the 5th, 6th place spot. I think only because we're still going to have defensive weaknesses, and I think we're still going to try to figure out the offense. I think what's going to keep us in the game is possession, and possession is going to be our best defense at this point. And we're going to just be scrapping results. And that's what RSL has been known for the past couple of years. It's just the X-Dog factor, just scrapping out results. So I think 5th and 6th is pretty reasonable, especially with the amount of departures that we had. Granted, we were third in the West last season. That was probably pretty high with how poorly we played towards the end of the season. That's why 5th, 6th is reasonable for this team, and I hope that I get proven wrong because, to be honest, I believe in what Pablo is doing, what Kurt Schmidt is bringing on. It's just really hard to see sometimes the results on the field.
RSL, what's the fan base over there like? Because I've never considered, and tell me because I've never been out to Salt Lake. Is it a big football city?
So among the youth, it's pretty big. We have innumerable amount of clubs here. The kids play a ton. It's where it gets to the adults. I think it's still newer for the adult crowd. we have, for instance, Miami has all their barra bravas. They have all their supporter groups, and they can fill
Yeah.
up the north side of the stadium. RSL's south side, that's where our supporter base is. It tends to be a little bit harder to fill in. We have our supporter clubs, but it tends to get a little bit harder to fill in. And I think because here in Utah, there tends to be a lot more families with smaller kids, and it just seems to be a little bit more conservative in that sense. But there are fans. There are a lot of fans. It's just needing them to get out to the stadium.
Do you guys have any traditions? Like any traditions?
Besides just going to pregame, we usually do a walk-in an hour before, singing, hitting the drums. That's basically one of our biggest traditions. But other than that, our other biggest tradition is beating the Colorado Rapids almost every year, except for last year.
I love that Soto shot. And then last question. What's the name of your supporter groups? Because I don't think I've heard of the supporter groups over there in Real Salt Lake.
No, yeah. So overall, they're all part of this big group called the RSL Riot, because before our stadium was called Rio Tinto, so they would call it the Riot. So we have a couple of fan bases. We have Los Caballeros Reales. We have, now you put me on the spot. We have a couple of them. We have La Barra Brava. That's what they call themselves. So there's I think 2 or 3 other main groups. But they've all just been broken off little by little per year. Some people want to form their own own clubs, own supporters, focused on.
That's how it usually goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, we're just all called RSL Riot. We are the Riot, and so we try to. All the pregame is all together. All of us do all the barbecuing, the drinking, all the stuff beforehand. And it's then when we go into the stadium, everyone has their flags, everyone has their chants. So that's basically what we do.
And are you guys in favor or against the changing of the schedule, the calendar?
Ooh, don't put me on the spot, because I actually have a different opinion than most people. I actually am in favor of calendar change, even though, like I just mentioned, we have snow here. It's going to be impossible to play, but I prefer a European calendar.
Because of the transfer windows, I would assume, right? Because that's the positive that I see.
Yeah. In fact, maybe just to talk a little bit about that, if we were on a European calendar, the transfer of Gomez would not have hurt us as bad. We would have been able to wait either before August, or maybe we could have done it in the mid-year transfer window, and that probably wouldn't have hurt us.
I agree, because we lose our biggest names in the middle of the year, because that's when the new season's starting over there in Europe, and vice versa. When we get a big name, we get them halfway through the season, and kind of like when Messi showed up in Miami, they're already so far off the playoff spot that it was a hard time to run. So I get it. But personally, I enjoy my summer football because other than that, it's only baseball, and I would hate to know that you're taking away those summer games, because I enjoy going out there in the summer.
Absolutely. No, in fact, summer here is also great. Night games in the summer is something that I long for. So I can see it that way for sure.
My wife's always wanted to go out to Salt Lake. I'm going to have to go out there to catch a game or something, because, I mean, from all the pictures I've seen, it's absolutely beautiful. All right. Again, I say this at the end of every preview. This was a quick 15, 20-minute preview just to give everybody a taste of Real Salt Lake and all the other clubs. But if you want an in-depth look, the point of this is to kind of point you in the direction of podcasters and content creators that do cover the team. So, Alan, let them know where they could find you if they want some more Real Salt Lake talk.
So we are on Twitter and Instagram at the RSL Bros. We are also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can find our weekly show in any of those places.
Awesome. Alan, I appreciate taking the time to join. And again, if you want more in-depth RSL, check out Alan and the RSL Bros and to get your fix.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it.
All right, Alan. Keep in touch with you throughout the season. All right. And now let's head north to Seattle with my guy, Cameron. What's going on, Cameron? How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you doing? Good to see you again.
I am doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. It is because everybody that's come on today has been like, "Oh man, it's snowing. It's so horrible over here, and it's 85 over here." So I'm it made me feel even better.
That's beautiful because it is snowing right now. It's not accumulating, but it is snowing.
There you go. All right, Seattle, 2024. Obviously, you guys made a late playoff push, a great run, one that, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I kept saying that you guys were going to be in the Western Conference. Give me a quick 2024 recap.
Yeah, 2024 was an interesting year. The Sounders started out kind of rough, went a little bit downhill, and you had players that had previously been successful players that just weren't performing. Shots were missing, bad passes, bad fouls, red cards, and it looked like the team was not going to go anywhere. In fact, on our show, we coined a phrase, Sounders Scuttlebutt, that kind of took over in the Twitter sphere and elsewhere, called this the Siggy line, which was the line at which Siggy Schmid got fired. And if we didn't get more points by the date that he was fired, we thought maybe it was time to move on. But Brian Schmetzer got the team to turn around, and they finished 3 points, I believe, above the Ziggy line, and then kept going, and everything started clicking. They went on a huge run, and then, as we saw, with that solid defense, we're able to take it all the way, almost to the last minute against LA Galaxy in the Western Conference Final, and then mistake from the Sounders plus an amazing play from Ricky Puig just made it so. The Sounders lost 1-0, and then we, of course, saw LA go on to win the championship.
Well, you guys played 4 playoff games, and I believe you guys scored 3 goals in 4 playoff games.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
I think 0-0 at home the first game, and then 1-1, and then
2-1 LAFC, and then So obviously, best defense statistically in the league, but the attack was porous. You had Pedro de la Vega was injured for a large part of the season. Jordan Morris finally got into the attack, though. They put him up at the 9. Now, biggest departures before we get into arrivals, because I am curious about the whole Jordan Morris and the new arrival. But the biggest departure, what would you say is the biggest departure from last season?
You know, it's tough because I think just personality-wise and what he's meant to the team, it's got to be Raul Rudy Diaz. Here's a guy who was one of the best forwards in the MLS for years, and
not last season.
Not the last few, but but he had a lot of times where he was up there in the run for an MVP, and it just was really one of the players, along with Nico Lodero, who's the heart and soul of the team. And his time had come, and so he's moved on. So I don't think they're going to miss him from on the field. I think off the field they'll miss him. On the field, I think the biggest departure is probably Leo Chu, but he had a rough year as well. You know, he started out really great, and it just never really clicked after that. And he was moved on to Dallas in that Jesus Ferreira trade. So we didn't have a lot of players move on. I mean, Braulio Rodriguez never could make the field. Nathan at center back didn't get to play as much as we thought he would because he was hurt. But when he was on the field, it was impactful. We thought he might come back, but no. Otherwise, it was Dylan Tevez, Soda Kitahara, a couple young players who just couldn't crack even the 18 most of the time. And Dylan was in there a few times, but UW graduate, University of Washington. But they've moved on, and most of them. Half of them, I guess, have found other teams. Nathan is now in Brazilian B League. Leo Chu, of course, with Dallas, and Braulio Rodriguez just signed with Lexington in the USL. So they didn't lose that much from a team that, struggled on offense, but was the most solid defense in the league, and that gave them an opportunity to build, and that seems to be what they've done.
Absolutely. Now, I would assume that going into the offseason, you think we need more in the attack. So you go out, you get Jesus Ferreira, and you get Paul Arriola. Were there any other big arrivals that you feel are going to be impact arrivals outside of those 2 big names?
I think bringing back Kim Keehee, He was a solid center back for the Sounders in years past when he was there with Roman Torres, and also we had some other defenders back there too. They had three players back there that would cycle, but and when they went on their runs into the MLS Cup before, and so here's a player that spent the last few years at home in Korea, and he's come back, and he's not going to see a lot of the field, I don't think, but this team is so close. There's a lot of Areola and Ferreira were already friends with a bunch of the players on the team, Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan, and we see Kim Ki come in and can help that defense stay strong, especially as they've signed a few young defenders to come in and have a young superstar in the making in Stuart Hawkins. So I think he's going to be one just from a locker room perspective. No one's bigger than those other two players they brought in.
Right. And Henry here in the comments said, could we count Pedro de la Vega? I'm assuming because he's looked good so far in the preseason and he's healthy.
Yeah, he's been the best player in the preseason this year for the Sounders. I don't know if he scored every match, but he scored almost every match, and he looks fit. He came in 5 or 6 pounds under the weight he was last year. You can tell he lost some of the boy fat in his cheek from being a kid, and he's a grown-up man now. And he's been incredible. I was at the closed door preseason match yesterday against Louisville City, and it was fantastic watching him just run all over that field. He wanted the ball. I think he felt the pressure, and he feels like I need to perform, and it's not holding him back. It's striving. It's making him strive to be even better, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the breakout player on the team.
Nice. So you think that's the player to watch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
okay.
Obviously, Jesus
he's not
Ferreira,
a household name.
No, but I think Jesus Ferreira being on the national team, already kind of is in the U.S. So
for those non-household names,
yeah, absolutely. And I think he'll become one. He was the type of player I think that you see other teams getting, and that the Sounders have in the past, with like Nico Ladero, where you don't know who they are, but you bring them in, and they just make such a huge difference and become the heart and soul.
Nico
Alex
Ladero ended up in Paraguay.
Yep. Just today he signed. There was talk about bringing him back to Seattle.
Why would you go to Paraguay though?
Closer to home, I think. There's other Uruguayan players that signed today there as well, so he's probably getting to play with some friends. He was ready to move on from Orlando.
I don't know. I just thought it was weird of all countries, Paraguay. But that's neither here nor there.
Money probably as well. I mean, he's going to make more there than playing the MLS.
Absolutely, that is true. So as far as formations and tactics, I guess before I ask you for a specific formation and tactic, Jordan Morris. Now that Jesus Ferreira is there, is he going back to the wing?
I don't think so. I like him better on the wing. He went on a pretty good run of goals there, but in the final 11 games, including the playoffs, he only had 4 goals, and I believe 3 of them were from the wing. When later in a match when he moved over to the wing, including the one that put the Sounders through in the one match. So I definitely like him on the wing, but they went out, they tried to find a number 9, and they didn't find a number 9 better than Jordan Morris. What they found is Jesus Ferreira, and brought him in on quite a deal in a way that you're bringing in an impact player that is worth, I mean, if he lives up to his pre-injury last year's injury season standards, the $12-13 million, and you brought him in for a player who is an afterthought in your team now in Leo Chu. I hope he's successful and does great in Dallas, but he didn't really have a place on the Sounders roster anymore. And what was it, like 4 million GAM or something like that? So you greatly upgraded at that position. I could see them both playing up top together, maybe with Ferreira slightly. I could see it like an Obafemi Martins, Clint Dempsey situation where you have Jesus kind of sitting in that pocket right behind Jordan, and they work together up in the front. But both of them can play on the left. We've seen Paul Areola play on the left, both in a I guess we'd say a 3-5. 3-5-1, 3-5-2. I can't do math right now, but it's really 5 at the back with wing backs. So we have 3 center backs, 2 wing backs, then midfielders and forwards. So
and that was going to be my next question. So you guys play with 5 in the back?
Schmetzer seems to like that. A few years ago, the Sounders played that, and they were unstoppable. and then teams maybe started to figure it out near the end of the season. And I think the Sounders finished second that year when they played with 5 at the back. So it's a possibility. They did not yesterday in preseason. They played a 4-3-3, or I wish a 4-4-2 and a 4-5-1, or if you want to say it, a 4-2-3-1. They like those central defensive midfielders.
I know. Yeah, that's awesome. Christian Roldan, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, he is, moved back. He's been on the right since the last World Cup, since before the last World Cup. He's been playing right mid. But before that, he was incredible at center defensive mid. And they did bring back João Paulo, who they thought was going to move on, who has been just a stalwart back there in a series of, I mean, the Sounders have been so lucky. Every center defensive mid we've had, it feels like it's a starter, has felt like they've been incredible. And now you've got Christian back there, along with Obed Vargas, who, of course, plays for the Mexican national team now.
I think that Seattle is that pillar of consistency in the MLS. Like, you look at some, like the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA, you look at, I don't know, the Steelers in the NFL. I feel like the Seattle Sounders are not that big. I mean, they're a big market. Seattle's a big city, but
13th market.
Right. You don't think of them as a big market, but they are going to be consistently there, and I think that's absolutely awesome. As far as tactics go, do you guys keep possession? You guys want to play the counter? Typically, what is it we could expect to see from Seattle Sounders this year?
Definitely possession team. That's kind of, I don't think that will change because that's how Schmetzer plays. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons the offense has been so frustrating over the last couple of years, but especially last year, is we had lots and lots of possession, but we could not score. Traditionally, we come with the ball through the wings and then try and get it into the box. You saw that on steroids at the end of that LA Galaxy match, where you had Georgie Manugu come in and just run down that line over and over again and pass it into the box. And that's usually been successful for the Sounders, but last year it wasn't. So I think you could see more play pushing in. I mean, especially if you're playing Areola on the left instead of the right, and he can come across and pass it through the middle. If you have a healthy João Paulo, same thing. I mean, when he was healthy and was an MVP finalist a few years back, he could go box to box with the ball. And we aren't even seeing Rusnak right now because he tweaked something in Spain during preseason, so he hasn't been playing the last few matches. So he I assume he's traveling. Yeah, I mean, he's traveling to Guatemala because we play there first on Saturday, and then it's a week from Saturday, not the Saturday, and then we play that Wednesday at home. So he'll be ready by then. But I don't know what they'll do in Guatemala, just because really you just want to get out there without giving up a goal. If it's 0-0, that's fine, because then you can come home.
You come back home, absolutely. And Henry says he always refers to Seattle as the biggest sports city that nobody considers a sports city. You need the Sonics back to be considered a sports city.
Trust
me,
you
need them back.
Go check out Sonics Gate documentary I helped produce. That's you can get it for free.
I will absolutely check that out. Make sure that you check out Sonics Gate if you haven't already.
It's incredible, and you see our pain and what we went through in losing the Sonics.
Absolutely, man. The glove, Gary Payton, that was my guy. I love defensive players in all sports. That's always my favorite. Whatever. Well, I'm getting off topic, but yes, Gary Payton was my guy.
No, it's not down here. I have a signed Gary Payton jersey somewhere, but I think it's
absolutely
over there.
Awesome. The glove shows no love. All right. So if you were to say what you think could be the strength of this team, I'm just going to put it out there, possibly the attack. Now that, and that would be amazing for Seattle to say that the attack could be a strength.
Yeah.
Or do you just want to say the defense just because? I mean, that's what's.
Yeah, I think I would at this point still say defense, because it's going to depend on if the offense clicks and comes together. It seems like it is during the preseason, but especially if Pedro is going to be going like he has been. I think that as they play more offensively, though, it leaves the defense over to more counterattacks, and they can be more prone to mistakes. It will also depend on where they what formation they're playing. Because they're playing 5 at the back with those wing backs, and you have 3 center backs, that defense is going to be pretty strong, because
it's going to be solid.
You have to keep those 3 center backs back. And they're all, 2 of them were finalists for center back of the year each of the last year. And then you have Nuhu, which you saw him set down Gabriel Peck in that Western Conference final, which no one had done all season long. I mean, I would love, that's who I wanted the Sounders to go get, a Gabriel Peck style player in the offseason. I have a little bit of FOMO, but they didn't do that. They stayed within the league, and I think still improved the team enough that they will once again challenge for a top spot in the West.
And weakness, I'm going to let you say it, but I'm going to go put out there Ferreira, Jordan Morris. I want to say the health might be a question mark. That could possibly be a weakness. What would you say is the weakness of the Seattle Sounders?
Yeah, I mean, health. If they can't stay healthy, that's always been the number one stat in MLS for how you win. It's the most minutes you have on the field from your starters. So that's always going to be it. I think also those players need to prove they can do it. You know, they've both been there. Yep. Jordan Morris played well enough last year, scored enough goals to become a DP. So they couldn't go out and sign another DP because his contract made him a DP because of his performance. So can he now show me that he can put up DP numbers? He had enough to become a DP. Now I want to see him get out there and do it. Can he do it? Sure. But we need to see it. And I think Ferreira, I mean, considering what they've added, if Pedro's on, there's no way they won't score more goals. And so the question is, who's going to score them? Rusnak last year, obviously MVP of the team. I think he had just a few less goals than Jordan, but because Jordan had 13, I think he had 7 or 8, but he had more assists than Jordan. So, and if Jordan had been on the whole season, he would have had even more assists. So I think you probably are seeing a Sounders team that can score another 20 goals on top of what they scored last year, which probably still puts them in the middle of the league because they were way at the bottom.
You know what? And I thought that they were worse offensively. They scored 51 goals, which isn't great.
No,
but there's teams that were in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah,
so
it's because they had games where they won 4-0, 5-1, stuff like that. Towards the end,
outliers.
It was 1-0 every game towards the end of the season. Once they started winning, that's the interesting. Once they started winning, they weren't scoring in goals anymore.
And we haven't even mentioned the goalkeeper, Fry.
Yeah, I mean he's near the end of his career, but still looks good. Is out there. You know, we have Thomas in the waiting to take over. Andy's a pretty great player as well, but Fry is not ready to go, and he's going to go out there every single game and prove it.
So after that run last year, I'm assuming if you're a Seattle Sounders fan, you just expect to always be in the dance. But from a fan's perspective, what you hear from the fan base, what is the expectation going into this season? If we achieve this, we are satisfied with this season.
It's got to be make the playoffs for sure as a minimum. You know, the Sounders, this is, I believe, the 16th year of the Sounders, if I'm mathing correctly, and they've made this playoffs every year but one.
Oh.
So you expect playoffs. That's the bare minimum. If you don't make the playoffs, you blow it up and start over. They didn't quite do that before, but they had also, the year they didn't make the playoffs, won the CONCACAF Champions League. So they had other things going on that year that were pretty incredible.
That is the biggest one. So
yeah. And then this year, I mean, I think it's making a run for the MLS Cup, but you know, there's other tournaments where we are in the Club World Cup. We're one of the teams in Leagues Cup. So, I mean, that's always a possibility, but of course fans, we don't really care about Leagues Cup, at least not yet. And then we're in the CONCACAF Champions League. So I think it's pushing Champions League, get out of the group in Club World Cup, which I think is next to impossible, but
you
never know. Yeah. Sometimes other teams aren't playing their best players. Maybe they could sneak out. I just want some fun games. I mean, I get to see PSG, who I lived in Paris. I got to go root them on in Paris when I lived there. I get to see them come to Seattle now. So I'm pretty excited about that.
It's PSG,
so for me, it's more
Madrid, and I forgot who the third team is.
Atletico, yeah. So and Botafogo is the other team.
Botafogo,
is incredible. So it's going to be a wild tournament. But I mean, it's MLS playoffs minimum, and then you want to see a push. Prior to missing the playoffs a couple of years ago, the Sounders' average finish was second place in the West, and so I would expect that we're pushing. You know, on our show, we've had a debate prior to all the moves that were going on. My show co-host said second. I thought we'd finish third again. With the moves that have gone on, they now think that maybe we can push for first after kind of what's been happening with LA Galaxy and LAFC and some of the players they've been losing. Of course, they've gained some more since then, but still they lost some of their best players. So It's going to be interesting. I still need. I'm in a wait and see. Jordan Morris has to prove that he's a DP number 9, and if he's not, then they'll make the playoffs, but they're not going to win the MLS Cup.
So fandom aside,
yeah,
what is your prediction? Like, this is where the season's going to end.
I'm still saying third. They upgraded at maybe not every offensive position because you still have Jordan at the number 9, but PDLV coming in healthy is an upgrade on the right. I think you have the same on the left with Ferreira or Morris, Rothrock was there last year and he was a stud. So you have endless amount of players that can step up, which is needed because they're playing in so many tournaments. They're going to play over 50 games, hopefully, this season. So
right,
you need that and you need the depth. So I would say third, but they could upset someone in the playoffs. We saw it last year. And so if I'm anyone in the playoffs, I don't want to play Seattle. And it's not because I go into that game thinking Seattle's going to win. It's because Seattle's proven that time and time again that they can win that match even when they seem like they're the lesser team.
Absolutely. All right, Cameron, thank you for joining me. As I say at the end of every preview, it's a quick 15-20 minute preview. The reason we did this is to point you in the direction of people that cover the actual team. So, Cameron, let them know where they could follow you and get more Seattle Sounders talk.
Yeah, I'm at Legal Minded Punk on every single internet platform. And then, of course, check out Sounders Scuttlebutt, which is the podcast that I do with my buddies. And if you're into the Sounders, Grill FC is a supporter group I run. And you can also check out the Sounders Alliance Council if you want to learn about what a fan government is and why you should be forming a government of sorts for your team to union is another way to put it, to negotiate with the club to make sure that the supporters get everything they want and need from their ownership.
And make sure you check out Sonic Gate and beautiful kit, by the way. Everybody was complimenting when you first came on.
Brand new one came out, designed by 3 local Native American women. So super awesome.
Absolutely beautiful. And I think the most beautiful thing is those 2 stars up on top.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta
love it.
Yeah. All right, Cameron. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And we'll keep in touch throughout the season.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
All right, you too. All right, now let's head down south to my guy Eric from LAFC. What's going on, Eric? How are you doing, sir? Oh, and you are on mute. We're rocking and rolling. It's all.
I was on mute, man. I just messed up such a lovely segue like that, man. Doing great down here. It has been pouring rain, so we've just been dealing with it. Flash floods, all of that. Mudslides from the fires, and just another exciting day in the winter we've had down here. But we're ready for the season, man. We are ready for the season.
And I saw you in the chat, and you said that the team looks better now than it did last. We're gonna get into that because I think you might be a little crazy with that take. But before we get into that, this 2024 recap.
Yeah. And this is why you bring me on, because I can
absolutely
deep dive into what's going on.
Let's do it. 2024 recap. You guys ended up with a trophy. You ended up bowing out of the playoffs at the hands of Seattle. We just had Cameron on.
Again, he just talked about. Yeah, he just said how Seattle's a team nobody wants to face, and
which is true.
Very true for LAFC. We do not have a good experience against Seattle. But the 24 recap. Another thing to mention is we did make a finals of League Cup, and we came in second best again to that one. So more about that when we get into the weaknesses of the squad, which will relate to this. But we had the Open Cup victory, which was great against nearly wooden spoon Kansas City. So, but whatever, you can only play who's in front of you. So we're going to take that. It's a cup for the cabinet. Rings for the boys. Let's go. But 24 was kind of, I think a lot of us went into it. We didn't know what to expect with that season. We had the slowest start in LAFC history, but we rallied. We finished first in the West, barely. And,
decision day.
Yeah. And that's that.
Yeah. And you got that big signing in the off season. I see him right over your right shoulder there, Olivier Giroud. And that was a big signing, one that I don't think is paid off quite yet. I think it can, but it hasn't showed dividends yet. But in the offseason, departures. What would you say is the biggest departure in LAFC so far that you feel like it's going to have the biggest impact in the coming year?
Oh, it's going to be Mateus Bogusz to Cruz Azul, who in 2 games is he's like 3 assists in 2 games at Cruz Azul, and man, they are putting memes that he's like Dewey from Arrested Development. Like it's like Dewey in a Cruz Azul, and they're like, "There's Bogusz." Super funny, but no, he is tearing it up there, and I think
wasn't he your best player last year?
No, Denny Bouanga is always our best player, and he's this season still also he's not even in my notes of somebody to talk about, but Denny Bouanga, we live and die on Denny, and Denny looks pretty sharp so far, so we'll see if we can carry him to a third record 20-goal season. So Bogusz to Cruz Azul, big loss. I also suspect this is going to make Cruz Azul a much better team. He seems to be a guy they were missing, and he is lighting it up down there. So all of a sudden, I think Cruz Azul has become a CONCACAF threat to be one of the top dogs. The other one is, although he's not gone yet, is Christian Kike Oliveira. A very long saga of another holdout player from Uruguay with the same agent that Brian Rodriguez had, who was our other player that kind of gave our front office headaches when he was here, wanted to go, missed Uruguay, wanted to go anywhere else but here. So Kike Oliveira looks like he will be gone, moving to Gremio. That kind of just came out today. So, but he is also going to be a big miss. He was a very fast player. He was very dangerous when he was there. For us and what we paid, you probably underperformed a little bit, but just a little bit. And for a guy you pick up for $4.5 million, you expect some production out of it. So that's another Lewis O'Brien, who was a loan player from Nottingham Forest, I believe. He returned. He had an $8 million clause. The club, and I think most of us agree, he wasn't really worth that. And then the last was Edward Atuesta, who left, who had a very strong first half of the season and kind of petered out towards the end of the season. And so he's in Orlando. I'm glad he's back. He knows the league. One of my favorite players, but I'm in the minority on that one for LAFC fans. If he's in the right system where he can be a creator in the midfield and doesn't have to worry about the defense as much, he is going to pull some strings and make line-breaking passes. That's what he does. So we'll see what he does there.
What about Sanchez?
Elias Sanchez, yeah, he left too. I didn't even mark him down. He was kind of a guy that the year Father Time is undefeated, and and Elias Sanchez was that guy. Like when we had to have him out there every game, he just started to wear out towards the end of the season. So he's got another life now in Austin. He's already their captain. So we wish nothing but the best for Elias.
Yeah, I was talking to Austin yesterday, a podcast, and they're excited to have him there. All right, so departures, like I said, LAFC has lost a lot. Now, as far as arrivals go, let's talk because I feel like everything's being saved for the summertime. But before we get into the summertime, are there any impactful arrivals at the moment? And real quick, my guy here. Am I a Bouanga hater? I am not a Bouanga hater. I'm not a big Bouanga fan. I mean, he gets 20 goals, but literally, I think it was literally half of them were from the spot. So,
I think 8 of them were from the spot.
I think it was 10, but I could double check that. But Eric, biggest arrival.
Biggest arrival. I'm going to start out with one of my picks to be a MLS Best 11 is Igor Jesus. Igor Jesus came from Estrela, Portugal. He is a Flamengo player. He was a player that Flamengo fans didn't want to see go, but only left because they were just spoiled at their number 6 position at the time. He has looked very, very good in preseason, just dominate everything you'd want to see from a Brasileiro number 6. He dominates that area, and guys don't want to go near him because he's that guy.
He's a destroyer.
Yes, and then we're going to have Marky Delgado from our Carson 7 miles down the road. Marky Delgado is looking like he is the exact prototype that Steve Trundle likes in a midfield, and he has been absolutely fantastic. He's gelling very well with Giroud also, by the way, for pushing the ball forward. But Marky Delgado, I think, is going to be a guy to watch, and I think much better than Lewis O'Brien was in that same position. So that's if you have Igor Jesus playing where Atuesta and Ilie played, and you have Delgado, that's 2 upgrades right there in our midfield, and then Timothy Tillman is the last guy. Our midfield is way better than it was last season. Next, we're going to look at from San Jose, we have Jeremy Abobasi coming in, and he's going to play the number 9. He's going to basically he's an upgrade from Kai Kamara. No disrespect to Kai. We love him. He's 40 years old.
He's like another Kai Kamara.
Exactly. And Giroud, I don't think is going to go 90. Even in the big games, I think he's going to go about 60, 65, and Abobasi is going to come in. And the Coachella game, Abobasi came in. He drew a penalty within a minute and a half of hitting the field after Giroud came out. So he is going to be a huge impact super sub for us. The next guy we have is Yao Yaboa from Columbus. I think when we get into formations, we are going to play both a 4-3-3 and a 3-4-3. And Yaboa as a wingback, I think, is going to be very critical for that point. Also, Hollingshead on the left, I don't think has the gas to go 90 every season. He's another guy that time is catching up. The last guy we have is Nkosi Tafari from Dallas. Kind of a Dennis Rodman style center back from there, very flashy, flamboyant. He's got the big gauges in his ears, the tattoos, the dyed hair. He reminds me of Dennis Rodman. So we got him apparently with Dallas. He was one of their best center backs. He hasn't really hit the lineup much, but he's another guy coming in. So all of this there.
Is Maxi Chanel still going to be counted on as your primary backup? Because I thought he was horrible in NYCFC.
No. We still have Marlon, which has been injured this preseason. But Marlon, I think, and Aaron Long are going to be the 2 best center backs we have. We've been playing Eddie Segura, who has been serviceable, a little better than last season. But last season he a lot of really bad giveaways and own goals. So the other guys we have are guys stepping up. David Martinez is going to step into that wing spot. He was 18. He's 19 this year. Venezuelan kid, very, very good on the ball. One of the record outgoing Venezuelan transfers in history there.
Would he be taking over for Oliveira if Oliveira were to finally?
Yes. Although I think Oliveira was going to be asked to play right wing back, and I think that was a big reason I think that's a big reason he didn't want to be here because he doesn't want to play that position. He used to. He moved up to wing. Now moving back, I think that was a big part of him not being happy. But that's my personal opinion. So. We will have, Palencia is still there.
I was going to say, you touched on the formation. So as far as tactics go, do you think that the type of a game that you're going to play is going to switch up? Because I feel like Giroud needs a certain type of maybe building out the wings and crossing to the center of the pitch. Like, what have you heard, or do you know what kind of game you guys are going to be playing this coming year?
Man. From the couple of preseason games that I've watched now, it looks like we're basically going to play Dolo ball again, which is heavy transition play, and even with Giroud in the preseason, he was playing more like a false 9 than a target forward. Okay. And a lot of the scoring, I think, is going to continue to come from Denny Bouanga, and it's going to come from David Martinez, or it's going to come from our wing backs who are able to push forward. But I don't think Giroud is going to be a prolific goal scorer. I think he's still going to be a lot of assists and hockey assists. He's also a good option if we want to play a long ball and bypass the midfield from the back. Hugo Lloris, who is not really one to talk about much, has an absolutely insane long ball. And I mean, he had 2 assists last season from goal kicks. And, he's going to have that danger to him all season. And so this, being able to bypass the midfield when we need to is a whole extra wrinkle in the strategy, I think, that is going to be worth it with Giroud. And it's going to be to Giroud, who lays it off to Bouanga, who then runs down the field and creates that moment. So it looks to me that like Giroud almost playing more of a false 9, and he's going to have an improved productivity this year. I'm actually pretty I'm okay with my wait and see on how he's going to do this year.
All right. Would you guys be disappointed if Giroud and not maybe you specifically, but I'm sure you get the pulse of the fan base, if Giroud isn't putting up a lot of goals? Do you think that people are going to look at that as a big disappointment?
It's going to be a controversy. I think It's going to be one of those, like, half of the people are going to think that's horrible that you pay a number 9 to score, they have to score. And the other half, which I'll put myself in this camp, is as long as you're winning, I don't care. I don't care where the goals are coming from, who's scoring, if the guy's supposed to. If we're winning the games, that's what matters to me, you know. And
okay. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. All right, players to watch. So if somebody hasn't seen LAFC for whatever reason and they put it on TV and they're like, you know what, Eric told me I should probably look out for this guy. He's not a household name, but I want to pay attention to him. Who is that guy that you would say pay attention to him? And I have a feeling you say David Martinez, but go ahead. Tell me who
he's number 1 on my list. Is David Martinez is the first guy to watch for. I mean, he's the kid is phenomenal. He may have picked up an injury already this preseason. They're very tight-lipped about it, but he came out at halftime. He looked like he was holding his groin, and he pulled up on a breakaway run. So we'll watch that. He was injured probably 3/5 of last season as well with a back. So, you know, injury is the wild card, but if he stays healthy, this kid is going to be as good as anybody we've had in that position, not named Carlos Vela. And
I said not a household name. Not a household name.
Yeah. Igor Jesus is the other guy to watch. He's the one, like I said, the guy can dribble. The guy is a pit bull back there. I think, you know, if I was going to bet money on who the number 6 for the best 11 is, it's going to be him. So those are the 2 guys to watch for. Wild card to Nathan Ordaz. With Martinez injured, he's an academy player that may have a breakout season. He seems to have hit his growth spurt. He started playing 16-17. All of a sudden, he seems to have shot up 6 inches and put on like 60 pounds of yoked up muscle. So he could be a beast this year too.
Oh, okay. Now, if you were to say this is going to be the strength of this team, would it be the midfield? What do you think is the strength of this team in 2025?
The strength is going to be the spine, and the strength is going to be the defending. You know, long gone are the Bob Bradley days and the prolific goal scoring. We can score goals, but LAFC is going to mostly win their games by keeping the opponent from scoring goals. You know, you only need 1 goal if you hold the opponent out. So I think we're going to see a lot of low-scoring games by opponents.
All right. And if you were to say this team has this weakness, what do you think the weakness is going to be in LAFC this year?
I know the weakness. All of the LAFC fans in this chat are going to agree with me on this one. Our weakness is mentality. We have a bad habit of going into really big, high-pressure games and not kicking it up that next level. They'll kind of walk into derbies, they'll walk into playoff, and they'll just kind of treat them like regular games, you know, which they can have this advantage sometimes. But when the other team comes there to win a derby and we're just coming to play a derby, it hasn't worked out well. So our weakness is mentality. It's been our entire existence. So it will be until we show otherwise.
That's interesting. Okay. Now, fan expectation. If you were to go and get the pulse of the fan base and just say, I think the fan base is going to be satisfied if we get to this point, if we get this trophy. Like, what do you think is the fan expectation going into 2025?
Man,
is it Griezmann? Is that it?
No, man. We're those assholes that need to win everything.
Got it. Okay.
Our fan expectation for LAFC is to win everything we are in. And if we don't win everything we're in, people will criticize, you know, like that's.
So you're criticizing every year because it's impossible to win it all every year.
I know, but we seem to be competing for everything every year. So, you know, we really expect if we get there, we should win it, you know, and that comes down to the mentality, which was the previous question. So I would say for us, we expect to win everything we're in always.
All right. So let me see if I can get this out of Eric, because I don't know. Eric is diehard, but fandom aside, 2025 prediction.
Yeah, I think we're going to finish top 3 in the West.
Okay.
I think there's a decent chance that we finish first in the West. You know, I do think that our roster. Yeah, I think our roster is good, and if we do add Griezmann, our roster is going to be top. But I also think that the East looks really, really strong this year. So if we're talking, you know, the supporter shield standings, I think we're at best going to be 4th, 5th, maybe 6th. But I just think what some of the East teams are doing this year is frightening.
Okay. And you guys are in the Leagues Cup and Champions Cup?
Yep. And then
you don't get to defend your Open Cup.
No, the first team since like 2008 or 2006 that hasn't defended Open Cup. Isn't it? It's going to be up to LAFC too. They're going to have to go into that and take that tournament by the tail. We'll see if the kids can defend it.
Hey man, I'm praying that an MLS Next Pro team wins it. You don't know how much I'm rooting for that. All right, I say it at the end of every preview. Just a quick 15-20 minute preview, but I want to point you in the direction of people that do talk and cover the team. So Eric, let everybody know where they could find you.
You can find me, Eric Hulstrom, at Twitter. I'm also a contributor to Pitchside US, which covers MLS and Brasileiro. We kind of try to tie the two together. And I also have a podcast coming out called Section 128 that I do with my co-host Celso Oliveira. And that will be out next Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific time live. And we will be talking about LAFC and getting ready for our first CONCACAF Champions Cup match against Colorado. Please do not snow.
Man, I was about to ask you a question, but that'll take us another 5-10 minutes. So, Eric, as always, appreciate you jumping on. You're one of my favorite guests, and we'll keep in touch throughout the season.
Yeah, man, you're like one of my favorite people that asked me to come on their show. So yeah, let's keep that ball rolling.
Absolutely. Appreciate you as always, Eric, and have a good one.
You too.
All right, and now we are down to team number 29 in our MLS previews marathon, the Houston Dynamo. And I got my guy here from Keeping Tabs. What's going on, man? How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good tonight. How are you doing today, Mr. Daniel?
I am good. You're in Houston, so I'm assuming the temperature might be decent. But everybody that's come on the show tonight has been complaining about snow and rain. So I don't know how you're feeling temperature-wise.
We actually got snow, surprisingly enough, down here in Houston like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was crazy. We got 1 inch of snow. School was canceled. Work was canceled. And it's actually a crisp 53 degrees right now. So it's feeling pretty good down here.
53. Okay. Well, down here, 53 people will be bundling up. But I love it. Right now it's like 85 down here. But all good. Thank you for joining for the quick recap. A 2024 recap. If you could just give us a quick recap and how you guys kind of just floundered out of all the tournaments.
Well, 2024 was a weird year because in 2023, if you remember, we had broken our streak of 7 or 8 years in a row of not making the playoffs to make the playoffs. And we actually won a trophy, the 2023 U.S. Open Cup trophy. It was Ben Olsen's first year of being the head coach. So it was more of a fantasy run, if you really think about it. I mean, no one expected us to really go that far or do much of anything. So because of that, expectations jumped, right? So really anything that wasn't at least on that level was a disappointment. So come 2024, we didn't make really any big signings. We lost important players such as Teenage DB and Corey Baird, who are both at Cincinnati, funny enough. We lost, Luis Caicedo and a very important depth piece. We lost more players than what we brought in. And it was a weird year because we had gone so long down here in Houston without having anything. And then in 2023, we had everything. So in 2024, yes, we made the playoffs. Yes, we finished 5th in the West, but it sort of felt like more was missing. And as you may know, Ache got his red card versus Seattle in the second round. Coco Carrasquilla
what a way to end your career with Houston.
Well, for both players, I mean, Hector Herrera is by no means the most important player to ever play for the Dynamo. That would go to Brian Ching, Brad Davis, DeMarcus Beasley. But Hector Herrera by far is undoubtedly the most talented player to ever play for the Dynamo. And to have such a legendary career in like that at Houston Dynamo leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And honestly, Pat Onstad, our general manager, is on record saying that how can that red card not be a reason why we didn't re-sign him? Yes, he was injured a lot. And yes, his performance dropped. And yes, he's 34, but he's still at least a top 8, top 7 midfielder in the league.
And
yeah. No, I was gonna say, going straight to departures, him and Coco were I would assume, the heart of your midfield, and you lose. It's hard to replace one of them. You lost both of them this offseason, or I'm assuming those two were the biggest by far departures of the team.
Oh, by far. I mean, Coco Carrasquillo was the 2024 CONCACAF Player of the Year for Panama. I mean, and even for every CONCACAF player in the region. And we sold him for what seems like pennies to Pumas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, for such an important player, it seems like we should be aiming for at least $5 million if we're going to let go of that. And that's what kind of is really confusing if you're not a longtime MLS fan, is seeing players leave like that to other leagues. Because it's like, well, if they're so important, why would they leave? But, you know, everyone wants to go on, and Coco always had aspirations going to Europe.
But I don't get why they're going to Liga MX. That's the part that drives me crazy.
Okay, Liga MX, in my opinion, is still above MLS just because of their heavy hitters. In my opinion, they have more depth, and because of the lack of cap that they have.
They could. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's why, even with Messi in our league, I would still, as a diehard MLS fan for over 10 to 12 years, I would still say Liga MX just barely surpasses. But I agree. I mean, but Pumas is a massive, probably the biggest team, one of the biggest teams in North America. So it's still a massive team that will get looks from European clubs more so than Dynamo. But that's besides the point. It was a massive loss, and what's even more frustrating is that we haven't done anything to replace it. I mean, you know, we can move on. You know, we moved on to the biggest departures, as in Ache and Coco Carrasquillo, obviously. Biggest arrivals.
We'll go to our rivals, yeah.
Jack McGlynn, obviously one of the first money signings for $2.5 million around that, thereabouts. And using one of the new money signing rules, I mean, I love that for MLS. It's really going to help. And you saw that with what's his name that went to SKC?
Jovic.
Yes,
Jovic.
Exactly. Yeah, you saw that. And then who else? You said another player?
Lucho Acosta went to Dallas.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And Evander went from Portland to Cincy, yeah.
I mean, how great is that for the league to see that? But, you know, and Jack McGlynn, you know, having offers from Serie A clubs in Italy, Bundesliga clubs, and even clubs in the Netherlands. I mean, there were European clubs all around for him, and even getting, I believe it was his first senior team appearance for the U.S. men's national team, and scored a banger of a goal versus Venezuela. I mean, this kid really does have really high.
He's got a great left foot.
Exactly, and but that's the key word, is potential. I mean, there's no doubt about it that it's not even a crazy take to say that he may never be as good as Ache. I mean, Ache was winning trophies for Porto, was starting for Manchester United in the Champions League. I mean, you know what? I'm not Manchester United. Sorry. Atletico Madrid against Manchester United. Sorry about that. But yes, Ache was playing in Champions League, and who knows if Jack McGlynn will ever get to that level. He's a talented player for sure. But if that's our only signing that we're going to make, I have real serious concerns. And another big acquisition is Eric Duenas. He is a 21-year-old, I believe 20-year-old center mid / fullback that was actually one of the first homegrowns from LAFC, and they declined his option. So he's going to provide really important depth. He's already scored 2 goals for us in preseason, and it looks like he climbed the depth charts, now being ahead of Brooklyn Reigns, who looked like he was going to be a pretty important depth role, but it seems like Eric Duenas seems like he's going to be the first midfielder / fullback off the bench. So that was a pretty big acquisition.
That was going to be my question to you. I was wondering if Brooklyn Reigns is going to be filling in one of those 2 open spots left by Coco and Ache.
Well, Brooklyn Reigns was, I mean, he's a highly touted prospect, still is, but and Pat Onstad and Ben Olsen are on record saying this offseason that Brooklyn Reigns will be the first midfielder off the bench this season. But that was before we got Eric Duenas. I think Eric Duenas is light years ahead of Brooklyn Reigns right now, just because of the experience. I mean, this kid got
like
his
19?
first. He's 20, I believe, and he got his first appearance for LAFC at, I believe, 15 or 16. One of the, I think, at the time of his appearance, he was the youngest player to ever
No, I'm tripping. Not the youngest. That's what's
Freddie
his name?
Adu?
Yeah, I do. No one can ever be 14 years old. But that's besides the point. He was one of the youngest players whenever he made his appearance. So he is a massive acquisition and going to provide really good depth. And I'd say that Jack McGlynn is easily our biggest. I mean, but we need more.
So as far as formations and tactics go, what formation do you think you guys are going to run out with this season? I'm assuming similar to last season. And you guys play that low block because your defense was stellar last year.
Well, we play a possession style of football. I mean, we had the second most possession in the league in regular season behind Columbus Crew. So we're going to hold on to the ball a lot. And we do that with our 4-3-3 formation. And what really is the forefront of that is our 2 holding 8s that we like to play. We don't really play with a cam. We play with 2 central midfielders and Arthur sitting behind them. So it's really because of that. And I have questions with Ache being out because he's a master of possession. I mean, he was facilitating our entire attack. I mean, he would get over 100 touches on not most, but a good handful of games that he was present for in 2024. He would have over 100 touches on the ball, more than any player on the pitch. So I have real question marks if Jack McGlynn can fill that role in.
Yeah, and the attack was you guys had one of the lowest number of goals scored.
Exactly.
Last season.
And that's my weakness. We made the playoffs. We finished 5th. And if I ask you how many goals you think our highest goal scorer had, you probably say 10, 12, maybe 6. Our highest goal scorer had 6. And he started almost every game. Ibrahim Aliou. He's a U22 player for us. And that's a whole nother story. I mean, he does a lot of good things, does a lot of bad things, but he's not a great attacker. Ben Olsen is a very conservative coach. He loves his defensive players that will put work in behind the ball. And that's what Aliou does. I mean, he's a great defensive winger for whatever that's worth. But yes, I mean, we created one of the lowest amount of chances. We had the lowest amount of goals. We would have the ball, but we just wouldn't do anything with it. But, you know, our strength is possession. We did have the second most possession in the league out of just behind Columbus. So, and again, I have question marks to see if that will continue, but our possession, and you could even say our defense, because I mean, Mikael is a top center back. I mean, he has a lot of interest from different leagues in Europe, and I will not be surprised if he's gone, especially because we just signed the Fluminense center back Andrade, Felipe Andrade. We just signed him. He is breaking into that lineup at Fluminense at Serie A in Brazil, and that's a massive club, probably the biggest club in South America, one of the biggest clubs in South America. So because of that, and because of we signed another center back too. So I think Mikael will be gone. So we'll see if the defense can hold up too. I mean, we're letting a lot of players go and not really making a lot of signings that I think are impactful.
So the weakness you said is the attack, the strength, the defense?
I would say possession and defense is our strength, but and I would say
I feel and I haven't watched Houston closely, but a lot of times teams play possession ball with no purpose. And I feel like there's a possibility that that's where Houston kind of falls into.
Oh, 100%. And a factor of that is that we didn't have a striker. We did not have an out-and-out striker because Sebastian Ferreira, who was recently let go, was our DP, but he wasn't playing. He was injured. He had falling out with the coach. So we were not playing with an out-and-out striker for most of the year until the end of the summer. We'll re-signed, obviously, Ponce. So he's a pretty decent goal scorer. And, you know, for $7.5 million, I do expect that this season he should have at least double-digit goals, or else it's a complete failure. So I think us not having a striker played a part in our poor stats in front of the goal. Yeah. So I think that will change some, at least.
Player to watch. If you had just one, somebody's going to turn on TV and Houston Dynamo's on, and they're saying, you know what, they told me to look out for this player that's not a household name, who would you say you should probably look out for?
Not a household name. I would say Griffin Dorsey.
Okay.
Yeah, he scored the winner in the 2023 U.S. Open Cup and had a pretty good year in 2024 as well. And
What position does he play? Because I'm not familiar.
He plays right back.
Okay.
Yeah, he is actually one of the more important players to our system. And him pushing up the field, he's more of a right wing back. And in attack, he almost plays right wing. And he's one of the most important pieces to the way that we play. So that's more of a low-key pick, I would say, in a player for the watch. I mean, He's coming into his prime. I think he's 25, turning 26 this year. So he's coming into his prime. So I would say that's a player that could make a big jump in my personal opinion.
Okay. Now, the run that you guys made, the defense you had, and then the players you lost, I'm assuming you have a pulse for the fan base more or less. What do you think the fan expectation going into 2025 could be? Where they say, you know, if we achieve this or we get this far or we finish here, we'll be happy. We'll accept this.
I think it's funny because your LAFC representative that you had on before was that we're greedy fans, he said, and that they want nothing but the best. But the thing is that LAFC provides, and that's where the Dynamo don't. But we have the same fan base. I mean, we were a very proud club at one time. We had got 2 back-to-back trophies in 06 and 07. And then
it was almost 20 years ago, though.
Exactly. And then we made the MLS Cup in 2011, 2012, back-to-back. So we used to be a very, very good club. And those fans have not forgotten. I would say we have very high expectations as a fan base. However, our club, such as teams like LA Galaxy, like LAFC, like Seattle, even your representative you had a few on go. I mean, you know, they have all these expectations, but their club provides. The Dynamo just don't. But I would say our expectations is absolutely nothing less than the playoffs whatsoever. And if we somehow miss the playoffs, I would say every fan would call for our GM to be fired. Not Ben Olsen, because Ben Olsen has been doing great. Actually, our GM, because of the way that he's let go of our players and not replaced them.
Okay, I can see that. So fandom aside, where do you see 2025 ending up? What is your prediction for the Houston Dynamo this coming year?
Well, you know, I bring up 2023 often because that was an important year for us in our growth, but we've been trending down since then. You know, we finished 4th, then we finished 5th, and then now we let go of our most important piece in our club, and we didn't really replace them. So I would go ahead and say 8th place. I mean, I think we sneak into the play-in if we don't make any acquisitions as of right now. So with our team right now, we are maybe an 8th or 9th seed team, and then probably first round exits, which is really sad because we made a lot of progress since we've been so bad, but we just haven't built upon that player wise. So I would say 8th or 9th.
In Houston, is there a want for players like Ache that are Mexican?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there like do fans want more Mexican players on the team, or do they not care?
Oh man, there's such a big Latin American community where, I mean, we have Colombians, El Salvadorians, Hondurans. I mean, yes, their majority's Mexican for sure, but I think any big South American, Latin American name. Okay. I mean, if you talk about James Rodriguez, oh my gosh, I mean, that would have done more for our city than any Mexican would. But I think a Mexican would definitely help. But, you know, us being as poor in attendance as we are, Ache didn't really help. So and he's one of the best Mexican players ever. So I can't say for sure. I want to say that it would, but I can't say for sure.
And Chris here is saying that he hates your goal music. I'm assuming it's the Mike Jones song.
Oh, that's funny. Hey, I can't ever talk hate on Mike Jones. You know, I'm Houston till the day I die.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. All right. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Like I say at the end of every preview, this is a quick 15, 20-minute preview. More than anything is to kind of point you guys in the direction of somebody that does cover the team if you guys want a deeper dive and a more in-depth preview. So let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, I'm Colin with Keeping Tabs, and you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Keeping Tabs Pod. We release our podcast, trying to go weekly on Spotify, and you can just type in Keeping Tabs Podcast, and you should find us. But I appreciate you having me on. It was a great time. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really appreciate being able to talk some Dynamo, and good luck to everyone's team, but good luck to our team the most.
Absolutely, Colin. Appreciate you taking the time, and we'll be keeping in touch throughout the season.
Hey, we'll be keeping tabs.
There you go. I see what you did there. All right, have a good one.
All right, thank you.
All right, that was team number 29, and now we move to team number 30, the final team of the 3-night MLS preview marathon. And for that, we're going into Miami, and we have the best MLS podcaster in the country joining me now, Mr. KBD. How are you doing, sir?
I don't know what it is, but I feel bad for everybody and their weather, man. Like, what is going on in this entire country?
It started with Ty, and it's been rough. It's been rough. All right, 15-20 minute preview. Here we go. Chris, 2024 recap. Inter Miami obviously got their butt kicked by Atlanta. Maybe not their butt kicked, but it was a huge upset to lose to the 9th place team. What would you give me a 2024 recap?
I mean, it sucked because we only walked away with one piece of hardware, which was the supporter shield, right? Everybody thinks that that's like the greatest trophy ever designed because we win it, European style, but it doesn't give us a star on the crest. And that's the only trophy we walked away with. We lost in the CCC because of David Ruiz getting a boneheaded red card. We lost in the Leagues Cup against Columbus, right? And then we run into Brad Guzan, and it's Messi versus Guzan. And the answer that's the correct one is the one you'd never guess in your life 10 out of 10 times.
Absolutely. Brad Guzan played out of his absolute mind. And I feel like if he doesn't do that, Inter Miami probably does advance further. And I would just say that they make it to at least the final, but who knows? All right, biggest departure for Inter Miami this offseason.
And I'm gonna get a lot of flack from the chat here, but obviously the biggest departure has got to be Diego Gomez, right? I mean, he is the biggest departure. No, I mean we lost absolutely. Legitimately the most active and great on both sides of the ball player. To replace that kind of engine or replace that kind of player is near impossible. We lost him to Brighton, got a lot of money back. But the other one that I'll tell you that we lost, and look, Mr. Krabs is saying Diego Gomez biggest departure, but the other one is Danny's favorite player, Leo Campana. We lost Campana. We have no backup striker. I mean, as you'd seen, Danny, and a lot of people in the chat have seen, who's been playing backup striker? Fafa, Allende, Robert Taylor, Rocco Rios.
There definitely isn't an out-and-out backup striker yet. But Campana's production wasn't. I think that they can find somebody to fill that hole. They haven't found them yet, though, and that's where the issue is.
Yeah, man, that's the biggest problem.
Biggest arrival. Who would you say is the biggest arrival this offseason? And if there's more than one, feel free to go off.
Well, there's a bunch, right? But I want to mention one that you probably haven't even thought of. Ustadi. He left.
Oh, he got here last year, though.
But he left.
Okay.
And then he re-signed. So technically, Ustadi counts, right? Yeah. And the worst part is that we have like an open competition for the goalkeeper position. Ustadi is, I guess, a pretty big arrival, right? Considering the competition. One that a lot of MLS fans are probably more familiar with is Fafa Picot. He's sort of like a journeyman in the MLS. Just came from Vancouver, still has some juice in the tank, and he played pretty well for Vancouver too. Especially considering that we're losing Diego Gomez out on the left side, to be able to have somebody like Fafa Picot that can be able to play both on the offensive side and the defensive side, even though considering that he's a older player, that's a big signing. That's huge.
I did the preview with Vancouver yesterday, and they said that their biggest departure was Fafa, and that they really wanted him back because he had a great year last year.
Well, I'm imagining that he is their Diego Gomez, right? Like in some way, shape, or form, not as young and as active, but I mean, he does sign kind of the same tasks. So
he's a game changer.
Yeah, I mean the other, arrivals, I guess we can go with, Tadeo Allende, that he's, from Argentina, came in from Celta Vigo, I think, from La Liga, and him coming in with Fafa Picault shows that there's going to be a lot of competition there on the wing side on the left, especially since the left wing is like pretty open. And one player I really want to see, which we haven't, is Maxi Falcon. We got Maxi Falcon. We haven't even seen him play. Same thing with Talasco Segovia. He's a Venezuelan player out of Casapia, came from Portugal. We did a preview video on him. Those are two players that I think are going to pay dividends for us, but we just haven't been able to see them play any minutes.
Maxi Falcon, center back. He should. Everybody criticized how bad the defense was, so you would hope that Maxi Falcon can fill in that void. And like you said, Segovia is what people have been comparing to a poor man's Diego Gomez, just a little saucier on the ball. Maybe not as good defensively, but he can still give you a lot. So it's going to be exciting to see those two.
I'm not done though.
Go for it.
We still have one more arrival.
Remember, this is 20 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's 20 minutes. Don't worry, Papa. We're moving. I did like 3. Okay. Rocco Rios Novo. Okay. He's also an arrival. Okay, that's another goalkeeper that came in along.
The topic said biggest arrivals, but sure.
Well, hey, listen, the goalkeeper position is it's pretty open, and it's a big position. It's the only position of its kind on the pitch. So that's a pretty big acquisition that we made. So just keep that in mind, guys.
All right, we got 14 minutes left, Chris. So formation and tactics. What formation do you see Inter Miami coming out with, and what kind of style of play do you expect them to play?
Well, it's weird because as a team, we had a Tata last year, and it didn't. I don't want to say it didn't work out because we were one of the most successful teams in the league. But at the end of the day, we ended up getting Mascherano, and we kind of don't know exactly what formation he's going to put out in the first game or so. So right now he's been coming out with 4-3-3, mixing it up with a 4-4-2. Other than that, I haven't really seen anything else. I mean, sometimes they'll mix and match it during the games, but that's consistently what I've seen.
Yeah, I feel like a 4-4-2 is more or less the base when they're defending, and when they get on the ball, it almost changes to a 4-3-3. But yeah, well, we don't know for sure. But
that's the toughest.
It is possession based. We are going to hold possession, even though I feel like it's more purposeful this year. It's more direct passes. We're not playing it laterally a lot. We're more direct vertical passes, at least in the preseason so far. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Players to watch that are not household names. Inter Miami obviously will be on TV quite a bit and be promoted quite a bit, so people might be watching. But what's a player to watch that is not a household name?
I'd say Tadeo Allende, to me, is probably going to be a player that I'd want to watch, especially as a newcomer. He already has a goal in the preseason. So I do feel like if he gets the opportunities, I think that he's probably going to shine over players like, Robert Taylor. I think that he might be even better offensively than Fafa Picault. Other than that, I think the other player that we could see that's not a household name, I mean, Federico Redondo, right? Okay. Once he starts to get moving, I think that he's going to be, I mean, we've agreed that I think he's going to be, and you're one of the people that are co-signing it too, that he's going to be one of the players that are going to take the same steps as Diego Gomez, play lights out this year and on his way to the EPL. So those are two names that I think are good to watch out for sure.
And I throw Talasco Segovia in there. He is Venezuelan. They're hoping is their next big star in Venezuela. I mean, he looks like he might be a baller, but we are yet to see him. But I would say that's the player to watch. That is not in a household name. I'd say Talasco Segovia. All right. What do you think is the strength of this team?
Well, I mean, I think so far with all the acquisitions that we made, it's funny because you have strengths and weaknesses. I don't necessarily see a weakness, right? I mean, in terms of like the defense, we weren't the worst defensive team in the league. We were like top 6 defenses, right? Obviously, we have Messi.
Slightly above average, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have Messi, so you would expect greatness on both sides, but at the same time, we were pretty good defensively, and we got better. Our midfield, we have like, I don't know, 8 or 9 people that are interchangeable that can come in and bring in massive minutes that are unfazed in game situations. So to me, weakness, the only weakness I see, honestly, is at the striker position if Luis Suarez is not playing. Just because of the unknown of we don't know who's going to play that position after him.
Strength, kind of like what you said. We have Messi.
Yeah,
and
we have
Messi. I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's the strength. And then as far as weakness, I still worry about the defense and that high press that high line that they play. Jordi Alba in the preseason was getting up really high, and I don't know who's going to be covering him. That space behind them. So I think the defense still might be a weakness, even though it, like you said, statistically it wasn't the worst. But I do worry about that. And then real quick, player to watch. Neither one of us said Yannick Bright for some reason. Yannick Bright is a player that could be a star in this league. And I think people need to take some notice. They take notice of Yannick Bright.
I would have loved to bring him up, but I'm just afraid that it's going to get to the point where players like Redondo are going to rob minutes.
He's not going to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah, players like him, he's going to rob minutes. Segovia's going to rob minutes. So I feel like, unfortunately, he's going to be sitting on the bench for too long in order to be able to really show out, kind of like how he did last season.
Yeah, and then Justin brings up a great weakness here. Toto Aviles' love for the color red. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely hoping for bigger and better things for Toto Aviles. He is a player that I'm expecting to have a huge season also. So Toto Aviles. All right, Chris, 2025, obviously disappointed last year.
Very.
You have a pulse for the fan base. What do you feel is the fan expectation? Like, this is what the fans say they want, and when they get, they'll be satisfied with.
I think Supporter Shield is something that we've already experienced, and we've learned that the curse is real. So I feel like that's something that fans really don't care about. And listen, the CCC is laid out, red carpet style for us. That is the first and most immediate trophy we need to win. And I feel like the League's Cup is a possibility. But at this point, with the kind of team that we have at the moment, I feel like 2 trophies minimum and sitting between first and second place is what the fan expectation is.
Okay. So expectation, minimum 2 trophies. That's the expectation. Now, if we go in 20... Good.
And Sargent saying at least treble, CCC, MLS Cup, and League's Cup.
Okay. Now, I think that the majority of the fan base agrees with what you said. I think 2 is what they're looking for, and MLS Cup has to be one of them. Yes. Even though CCC would be nice, I think MLS has to be one of them and another trophy. But, yeah, I mean, treble would be nice. All right, so fandom aside, Chris. Take the fandom aside. 2025 prediction. Where do you think this team ends up at the end of 2025?
So I think that we're going to end up in 3rd place, if not 2nd place in the Eastern Conference. Okay. I feel like 1st place would be great for us people that have season tickets. But aside from that, 2nd to 3rd place, I feel like if there's games where we're not going to have to play Messi, we're going to rest him because we have enough depth that can be able to cover that. MLS Cup or bust at this point. That is the number 1 trophy in terms of what it is that we're looking for. The CCC is nearer, but at the same time, the MLS Cup is what we want. We want to have that star above the crest.
I'm with you in the prediction. I don't know where they fall in the standings, maybe 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, but I do think they're going to win the CCC this year. Yeah. Like you said, I feel like the bracket is kind of laid out. They have to get through either Monterrey or Pumas before they get to the final, but I feel like they should make it there. And I just feel like I think Messi's gonna no international duty. He's not gonna be playing for Argentina throughout the year, and I feel like it's on their mind that they don't like the way they went out last year. And I have a feeling that MLS Cup and CCC are attainable, and I think that they'll win both of those. So I think they will get both trophies. I don't know if they'll get Leagues Cup or Supporter Shield, but I think they'll get those two. All right. And that's it. A quick 15-minute preview. Like I say at the end of every preview, we do this just to give you just a little glimpse of every team. But if you want to catch a more in-depth look into Miami, Chris, let them know where they can find us.
They can be able to find us right here at Battered Herons. You can check us out right there. We do coverage in both English and in Spanish. Post 4 to 5 times a week, just depending. And now that the season's starting, we're going to be up and at it probably six times a week for sure. Yeah. It's gonna be a nightmare. And then you can hit us up here at Battered Herons and check out the store, batteredfans.com. We got a lot of merch that's up there for every single team, every single fan, whatever you're looking for, we got it.
All right. And Justin real quick said, do we advance in the Club World Cup?
Yes.
I think we get out of the group stage if we win that first game. I'm going to say we do win that first game and we advance, because all you need to do is win one game. They're playing against that Saudi team, and then draw one of the last two. I think they could pull off a draw somewhere. So I think that they will advance out of the group stage after that. But I think that they managed to somehow sneak out of the group stage. But I'm in no way predicting a win there. All right, Chris, thank you for jumping on, and you don't got to go anywhere. I'll close it out right here. That is the end of night 3. We've previewed 30 teams in 3 nights. We had 30 different guests. I appreciate every single person that took the time to give a quick preview, except for Justin, because Justin didn't want to talk to me. But appreciate every single one of you guys that joined us. It was awesome getting to talk to so many people from across the league. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Our goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts. But it was fun. It was a long 3 nights, but it was fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Chris?
I want to mention something, guys. And for those of you, the 190 people that are watching right now, guys, everybody needs to give a round of applause to Danny, because he busted his butt these last 3 nights. A lot of hours, giving a lot of coverage.
Holding my urine.
Yes, guys, the content that we and he provides is phenomenal. It's a lot of hard work. It's something that I appreciate seeing and witnessing with him. And guys, please just let all of your friends know that are MLS fans to give us an opportunity to watch our content. If there are Inter Miami fans, check us out. And if you can, just like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. It's so appreciated that you guys are with us and with Danny these last 3 nights. It's an amazing time that we're having, man.
Yeah, and Danny said I entered the robot number 1 and went the distance. That's Shawn Michaels this thing.
And Mr. Krabs, what do you mean stop glazing? Is my best friend here. This is what we do, guys. Like, what are we doing? What, Mr. Krabs, you want me to go punch him in the face?
Well, I mean, you talk like you want to do it sometimes. And real quick, if you're not watching this live, the chances of you seeing this part are probably slim. But for anybody watching live, if you missed any of them over the weekend, I am going to cut them all up and put them up as 15, 20-minute videos, however long they were, individually, so that you don't have to scroll through. But the timestamps will be in the description. But I am going to cut them all up to make them easier to find if you are interested in just looking at 1 or 2 specific teams. So that will happen. And again, the goal here is to grow the community and point everybody in the direction of those team-specific podcasts like we do with Inter Miami with Battered Herons. And again, we're doing the Battered MLS fans where we try to get everybody together once or twice a week. But with that said, it was fun. I appreciate everybody that hung out. And we'll be back. Actually, the next episode, me and Chris are going to be covering over the kits. So that should be fun. And so to look out for that. So I'm sure it'll be on our Twitter. So if you don't already, make sure Battered MLS fans on Twitter and put that bell notification so that you're aware of when we're going live. So that's it for the 3-night marathon. And I'm glad it's over. So until the next one, have a good one.